Wow, what an intro that was. That's like the weirdest countdown I've that's like the newest graphic that Restream has put. I hope they keep that up there. That's real nice. All right. Happy Monday, November 1st, day after Hallows Eve or Halloween. Hope everyone had a great weekend and all the rest of
Are
it.
our Mondays ever happy?
No, not even the slightest. Because it's like
Oh,
back to work for us, or back to school, or back to doing whatever we're
yeah.
supposed to be doing.
I should probably apologize to your viewers. All last week I had the stomach bug, which is why I wasn't here. Um, but I'm better now, I think. So,
Fingers
uh,
crossed. I mean, at least it wasn't COVID related, so
right, yeah. It was just awful. But anyway, so just thought I'd clear that up.
not a problem. I'm sure that most of the viewers will forgive you. So this is on a happy day after Halloween, Monday night, TJRS, the John Ross Show, coming to you live from my one bedroom, one bathroom apartment in the heart of Missouri, downtown, almost close to downtown Kansas City. I'm joined as always by my comrade and cohort after a long week away, Charlie RC Roberts of Broke Your Enemy on Substack, and we have a new face. Uh, I guess I should be the one to introduce you, but I watched your stream last night, and we've been, friends on Facebook for a short time, but why don't you introduce yourself?
Yeah. Hi, my name's Christina. I'm a Twitch streamer. I stream like politics on Twitch. I cosplay. I talk about pop culture, music, movies, politics, the like. I'm someone who knows like way too much information, and I talk too much.
That's me.
So,
That's totally me. Like we're like in the same boat. I
yeah.
like talking about news and politics, but I have that pop culture side of me. There's a part
Yeah.
of me that if you don't know who Kevin Pereira is, if you've ever heard of because they're coming back in a few weeks, G4, their big gaming TV network. I have that side of me that likes the pop culture aspect of life, and,
Yeah.
also aspect of leftist progressive media community that we're all in.
Yeah.
And we're also just point out we're all big TYT fans. At least Christina and myself. I don't know if RC has ever watched. I think I might have asked you once, RC, if you watched TYT, and you're like,
all I can say is a good critic keeps their preferences to themselves.
fair enough. Enough said. But Christina and I found out because I watched the stream, like I said last night. You said you're a big Sam Cedar fan and a big TYT fan, and I was like, oh yeah, one of us, another one. We're got another army going.
Yeah.
I lost my train of thought already. Yeah, we're there. Basically, what I was about to say was back in like the mid 2000 or mid 2010s or whatnot. TYT used to have like an entertainment division where they would show shows like Pop Trigger and What the Flick and Nerd Alert.
Yeah.
Uh,
Good old days.
yeah, the good old days of TYT when Pop Trigger was around and Brett Ehrlich was Brett Ehrlich, Hannah Cranston. I forget who else.
Now Brett does the Twitch.
Yeah, Brett. Yeah, Brett does the Sunday stream and the
Yeah.
Common Room on Twitch. And shout out to Brett and the crew at TYT.
Yep.
Keep
And Brooke,
going.
his wife, who also does the Twitch thing too. Like they're so cute. They're so adorable. I love them.
They're so awesome. They're like awesome people.
Yeah, they're like couple goals.
I watch the Sunday stream as much as I can, and like I always try to comment on, like, if I have something random to talk about, I'll just put it in the chat and Brett will react in a certain way. Like sometimes he laughs because I know that it's a funny thing that I'm asking. And sometimes I just ask him, do you like this person or like this person? And he just gives that like nonchalant but nice answer, like, yeah.
Yeah.
I like
He's
that.
so that like you can't tell like his sense of humor, like he's got that like chill, almost deadpan sense of humor. I love it.
Yeah, he's got that mellow, chill vibe that everyone likes.
Mm-hmm.
He's so awesome. He's like, you know, I just want to get his take in music though, because he's really good at guitar. Like if anyone who watches the TYT commercials where he's like spinning the basketball and he's playing the acoustic guitar, because he's played, I think on the Common Room he's done Tom Petty covers on acoustic guitar, and him and Brooke are known to duet, and they did it one time on, I don't know if it was I think it was a Sunday stream, and I would always like on Twitter after the show be like, hey guys, good show, and by the way, Brett and Brooke should do it too, like a family, like a husband and wife duo band, and they both liked the tweet, and that like made my day, or made my night. It was so awesome. So speaking of TYT, this is a TYT theme tonight because I can't hold my appreciation for them any much than I've already done since 2008. In fact, I was kind of watching them a couple hours before I got on the stream. I kind of did a little test stream without going live earlier today. Took a nap of sorts, or tried to, and then got up and prepared. And today's been kind of eventful in some way because it's been a long college school day for me, and it rained here in Kansas City in Missouri, so I got rained on, sort of. I mean, I got a good hair wash, but other parts like my jacket, my good blazer jacket that I just so like, that's hanging up, kind of got soaked, so it's air drying, still air drying. So speaking of TYT, I know I'm I don't know how many weeks late, because I've wanted to do this with RC, but of course RC was out sick, so we had to keep postponing. So finally tonight, I'm happy to do this. I'm sure everybody has known about the Anna Kasparian, Ben Shapiro debate, where clearly I know Christina was going to be on Anna's side. We're going to state my biases, and let me do this. Okay, so this is the first time seeing the debate. I wish I had watched it many weeks before, but it's already got several views. How nice. Okay, I'm just jabbering on. I'm
I like the dislike ratio too.
Yeah, very much a dislike ratio. So, how are we going to do this debate? Like, there are several ways that I wanted to approach this. So, I did like the Ben Burgess Charlie Kirk debate recently. Like, I did a good first part of it, and I just stayed off camera and like took notes and whatnot, and just kind of let the debate speak for itself. But I think for this one, we should all three stay on camera and I guess sort of comment and get our reactions, if that'd be all right, if that'd be cool with y'all.
Guys?
I'm gonna be like,
and so just FYI, I haven't seen this debate. Have either of you seen this?
No.
Yeah.
I have not.
You have? Oh shoot. Well, you'll see it. We see it again, right?
Yeah, I'm willing. Yeah, I mean, it's been I watched it when it first aired, so I've been so busy, so my memory's like right now. So
right,
it's gonna be as if I saw it for the first time tonight.
All right, so without further ado, and I'm thankful that this is on the I could go to the TYT YouTube and not the Ben Shabibo YouTube to watch this. So thank God. And I don't even believe in God. No offense to anyone out there that does, but anyway, I'm gonna stop blathering. Without further ado, Anna Kasparian and Ben Shapiro. Sorry, a little sound effect.
Chamber staff just had a stroke. I know that because they know that I will do that. We're going to go for about 55 minutes-ish. Always that ish because it's kind of a little bit of a. We're going to hit there, but we're going to have a great conversation tonight with Ben and Anna. I'm looking forward to it. I know all of you are too. We've been talking to you. So let's kind of start off. Let me ask each of you to introduce the other. Ben, would you like to introduce Anna?
Sure. So this is Anna KASPARIan. She is first of all, big round of applause for Anna because this is a Chamber of Commerce meeting. Anna's quite famously a Bernie Sanders supporter. So it takes a lot of guts to get up in front of a business audience. She really deserves a lot of credit for that, for sure. She's the co-host of the immensely popular Young Turks, which is a show you can find on YouTube. It's a podcast, and it's available pretty much everywhere. And she's also the producer of that show, executive producer of that show.
Thank you.
Anna, your turn.
All right. First of all, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here, and everyone's been so hospitable and incredibly polite and nice, and I really appreciate that. Ben, I just found out, based on what Jean told me, suggested me to be part of this conversation, and I really appreciate that. Ben is the co-founder of the Daily Wire, incredibly well known, especially in the media space, the new media space specifically, but he's certainly made his rounds in traditional media as well. And he has really popularized a lot of conservative ideals, conservative beliefs that I think were getting a little played out by some of the old guard of conservatism. So, Ben is known for being sharp, being able to defend his viewpoints without engaging in personal attacks. So looking forward to having this conversation with Ben and, sharing our ideas with one another and, with everyone here. So thank you for having me.
Well, we love civility, so thank you. So for those of you who looked at, our topic is leading political voices of the next generation of leaders. So your thought leaders within your individual, within your generation is much younger than mine. What would you like the people of your generation to know moving forward? Anna, let's start with you.
Well, I think that my generation is certainly pretty passionate about changing things, certainly changing the way that they work and live. We're seeing that play out currently with the pandemic and the labor shortage that's taking place, and I'd like them to know that we don't really need to reinvent the wheel. We've seen strategies and solutions that have worked in the past. This country has gone through many terrible things in its history, its very short history, relative to other countries. And despite all of those awful things that have happened, things like the Great Depression, for instance, the country was still able to pull through. And I would suggest looking to history at the solutions that worked, specifically a strong labor movement in order to, really rework the power dynamic that we're seeing right now in the workplace. I think a lot of the reasoning for not going back to the jobs that workers were previously working in prior to the pandemic has to do with the fact that, hey, we've been staying home during the lockdown. Now we realize that spending time with our family, having a little free time for ourselves, being able to go outdoors and do recreational things, that's important to us. So they're reimagining what their lives could be like if they take a little bit of power back in the workplace. And I think that that's definitely possible. They just got to fight for it. They got to organize. They got to work together and not get distracted by manufactured culture wars that we see play out in the media every day.
Ben, how about folks on your side?
So I think that for folks on my side, I sort of have the same message for everybody on all sides, which is that the world did not begin spinning when you were born. And there's a great amount of wisdom, accumulated wisdom, that is built up over literally thousands of years, and in the United States for hundreds of years, that is well worth going back to as a source of both inspiration and understanding of exactly why the system is supposed to work in a particular way. And that requires a certain understanding of human nature, of human beings, as both capable of amazing things, but also as inherently flawed and ambitious, and why you need a governmental system that is capable of checking ambition with ambition. ambition, checks and balances, subsidiarity, the belief in a federalist system that allows for experimentation on a local level without attempting to cram one size fits all solutions on everybody. From the federal level, but that begins with reading history. It does begin with understanding some basic philosophies about how the United States works, because if it feels like the country is coming apart, and it really does feel like that more and more every day, that is because I think that there is failure to agree on some of the central bases for the country. So we're either going to have to clarify where the disagreements are, or we're going to be in serious trouble as a country.
I love the answers because it leads directly into what I want to ask you about next. This is going to be the most obvious statement I want to make tonight. The last 18 months has seen significant turmoil, not only with COVID, but with our social, our cultural upheavals, as we've seen people, protesting some just horrible, egregious acts. As you know, the future of work, how we work, all those things are out there for discussion. Trust in institutions, and trust or an understanding, as Ben said, of literally the basis of our society. I saw a great quote. I mean, we've had the 1619 Project, we've had the book called 1620, 1776 Commission, all of them designed to push back on that. I saw a great quote from a noted political scientist who said, America is not a lie, but a disappointment. But a disappointment because it is a hope. Would you agree that that's a good description? And would you also agree that the U.S. is an exceptional country? Ben, I'll start with you.
I mean, I obviously believe that the United States is an exceptional country. I think that our history is filled with moments of glory. It's also filled with some terrible tragedy and some terrible evil. There's no question about any of that. To suggest that America's a disappointment is to suggest that utopia is a real place, or that whenever you say somebody's a disappointment, you have to say compared to what? What exactly are you shooting for? Compared to the ideal, of course, everybody's a disappointment. Saints are disappointments compared to the ideal. But if what you're talking about is America as a whole is somehow disappointing compared to, for example, what other countries around the world stand for, or what they have provided to their citizens, or what they have provided to the globe, then by no means is America a disappointment. America is a tremendous success story. In fact, it's the greatest success story in world history.
I serve for the place I call home.
I serve to protect those around me.
So there are parts that I agree with, some parts that I disagree with. For the most part, I just want to note that the idea of America is an incredible idea. I think that the country has failed to live up to its ideals. I think that there are certain things that are transpiring as we speak that go unchecked. We are supposed to have a system of checks and balances, but I think more often than not, we see a system that is in fact rigged in favor of the powerful. I'll give you specific examples. In the beginning of the pandemic, there were lawmakers in the Senate who engaged in this minimalizing, just completely minimizing the severity of the pandemic to the point where I actually didn't think that COVID was a serious threat to me, my health, my family's health. In fact, in February, I went on a cruise with my in-laws and had a great time and didn't think that COVID was going to be an issue. Then I find out, of course, a month later, everything starts shutting down. People I know get incredibly sick. And then news reports come out in regard to members of the Senate who had a classified briefing, closed-door briefing on the severity of COVID, and immediately turned around and started selling their stocks. They started buying tech stocks, realizing that people are likely to work home, so they might need to invest in technology or companies that offer technologies that make that possible. Basically, there's insider trading happening within the Senate. And I'm saying it out loud, and I'm saying it on a regular basis because that kind of activity, that type of behavior, first of all, is illegal for the average American, should not be illegal for members of the Senate. The fact that we have... The fact that we have lawmakers who are personally invested in businesses that they're deciding legislation on is unacceptable. So when you talk about the lack of trust in our institutions, I understand that lack of trust. And that lack of trust has led to the situation that we're experiencing today with COVID, where people don't believe in what the CDC is telling them, where people question what journalists are reporting about. They just assume because of the lies that have been told, because of the system being rigged against them, they just assume that they're being lied to. And now we find ourselves in this difficult position where we're trying to find solutions. We're trying to come together so we combat COVID effectively, get people back to work so people can thrive, families can thrive. But that's incredibly difficult to do when people don't trust in our institutions.
So earlier this evening, three of us had some interesting conversations about the way that our culture is broken, the way that civility has broken down. Let me give you a couple of numbers that are actually pretty scary. 15% of Americans have terminated a friendship over political differences. The reality is 53% of the R's have a Democrat friend, only 32% of Democrats have a Republican friend. Granted, a lot of that his report is being related to former President Trump. Kevin Drum, who I don't know, but is a liberal journalist with Mother Jones, said, quote, "If you hate culture wars, blame liberals." He wrote that in Washington Monthly. Is it fair to blame more liberals for the culture divide, or is it one that both sides have to take blame for?
I think that both sides certainly engage in manufactured culture wars, and it's frustrating to see it. Full disclosure, I myself have engaged in it, and I think instead of being oblivious or delusional about it, it's important to acknowledge when you've made the mistakes, right? And so the demonizing doesn't help. At the end of the day, we have to realize that we're all Americans. We all want the same thing. Fundamentally, we are the same. We might have different solutions, different ideas. Demonizing the other side doesn't help to accomplish any solutions. Again, we're seeing that play out in real time as we speak. I think that there's a market for the division, and that market is being exploited by our media. It's being exploited by politicians. And I mean, Facebook is in the news today. I think that Facebook, it makes money based on engagement, and people are engaged in the constant conflict. So it's important to be honest about what the real threats in society are. I think it's important to focus on why it is that, certain industries, including the media, engage in this culture of division. And we got to talk about how the incentives are in the wrong place. I mean, there are no incentives to engage in, friendly conversation or friendly debate. I hate that my chair keeps, and I'm short, so I'm trying to figure out how to do this.
I don't know.
I hate turning my back to people. Here, I'll just do this. I'll sit on the very edge. But we got to be aware of why it is that people engage in the divisive rhetoric that they engage in. There's a profit motive behind it oftentimes. I see it play out in the media. It's really, really hard not to fall victim to it myself, right? But when I take a step back and I look at where the country is right now, it's shameful. We don't see each other as fellow Americans. We don't see each other as even fellow colleagues or workers in the workplace. Everyone has a political identity, and that's it. And that's not helpful. I think the division of the country is incredibly embarrassing, especially on a world stage. And we got to be more cognizant of that as we engage in political discussions.
I certainly agree with an enormous amount of what Anna is saying about the nature of sort of the world that we live in, where people feel as though they are going to be ostracized socially. They feel that they might be fired, depending on their political point of view. They feel as though if they make comments openly, and this is true for pretty much everybody across the political aisle, actually, with the exception of people who consider themselves on the far left. According to Cato's study, basically every political subgroup in the United States feels uncomfortable speaking openly about what they believe, except if you're on the far left, because then you get to find people's old tweets and do that sort of stuff. I'm not going to pretend that I think that the culture wars are irrelevant. I don't. I think that many of the culture wars are highly relevant, and not just relevant. I think that they may be indicative of sort of where the country is going. Because the way that most people experience interactions with the government, particularly the federal government or politics generally, is not always based on tax rates or the very minute internecine debates that we have over $3.5 trillion bills that nobody knows what's in, and then everybody votes before they read the thing. A lot of the way that people engage in politics. I'm sure we'll get into it. But I think that a lot of the ways that socially there's been a pretty strong push from the left over the course of the last 10 years in particular, and it's driven a lot of reactionary resentment on the part of people who are on the right. And I would suggest that a lot of the support for President Trump, for example, was driven by precisely that. It wasn't just about his economic program, which differed from sort of the traditional laissez-faire Republican economic program. A lot of it was about the idea that he was a culture warrior who was going to punish enemies and all of this. And so to pretend that the culture war either doesn't exist, or that people are making it up in their imagination, or that they are overestimating the impact of it on their life is to ignore how people are being treated in the spaces that they treat with every day, on Facebook, on Twitter, in the workplace. I mean, one of the reasons that my family and I left California is not just because of the living standard, although Florida is way better. It is also because we left a place where we felt as though our children were going to be socially ostracized for a place where we feel our children are not going to be socially ostracized, and that's a big thing.
Yeah. No, I mean, you actually brought up a few issues that I agree with. Number one issue is the constant policing of people's pasts, what they've said in the past. I think holding people to the current standards based on the current culture. If you're looking at tweets, for instance, from 2009, and you're judging that tweet based on what the current culture or the current standards are, it's a little ridiculous, right? So going around demonizing people based on their past statements, it shuts down a conversation that could be had, right? A conversation about, oh, hey, look, society has actually progressed on this, and, look at what was okay. I mean, you have late night hosts who were in blackface not too long ago, right? But the culture has changed. I think that, society as a whole, not everyone, but society as a whole has realized, oh, well, blackface has a pretty terrible history, and maybe it's not a good idea to dress like that as like a cute little Halloween costume. But beside the point, I don't think that the culture wars are fake. I think the culture wars are taking place. The point that I'm trying to make is that oftentimes, whatever the culture war is of that moment, it is manufactured as a distraction. A perfect example will be, critical race theory, which is not taught in elementary schools. Critical race theory is a graduate level curriculum. And the fact that it's turned into some weird, like, oh, we need to ban critical race theory in elementary schools, it's ridiculous and a massive distraction that I think is intentionally meant to be a distraction from what people are really feeling frustrated about. The precariousness of their lives, of their work lives, the fact that people feel overworked, that they have no control over the work that they're doing, that they feel alienated over the work that they're doing. These are very real issues, and I think that, the fact that it's really largely been ignored by both the press and the very political leaders who were elected to represent them in the first place has led to the anger that we're seeing bubbling up both on the left and the right.
Ben, I think you wanted to make a couple comments.
Yeah, I mean, this will be a very quick note. I obviously disagree with you about critical race theory and whether it is taught in the public schools. Critical race theory, which I studied in law school, it started off as a legal theory, but it has an element of praxis that was meant to be implemented, which is why it is taught in education schools as well, and why
in elementary schools.
Yes, a very boiled down. I mean, Ibram X. Kendi is preaching a very boiled down version of critical race theory, and his book is assigned in elementary schools. I mean, the fact is that when you are having elementary school students who are having to check off boxes with regard to their race and then explain to each other whether they are historically privileged or not in 4th or 5th grade, that's a very dumbed down version of critical race theory. There's sort of a game that gets played with regard to legal theories that end up being boiled down. Intersectionality is another great example of this. Kimberly Crenshaw writes a very intelligent law review article about intersectionality and how you can be a member of more than one minority group and be discriminated against in a variety of ways. And then that is used as the basis for a much broader move in American political life. And then as soon as you point that out, they say, well, that's not intersectionality, it's the original law review article. That's a bit of no true Scotsman games playing. And so I object to that. And look, it is a relevant issue when you have Terry McAuliffe, who's running for governor of Virginia, literally saying in open debate that it should not be parents who are making the educational decisions for their children. It should be the people in education. I mean, that is a culture war issue that I think is of key importance to people who have kids, right?
Well, see, I mean, I think that that's part of what leads to the lack of trust in our institutions. I mean, yes, as a parent, you get to make decisions about which school you want your kid to go to. If you're uncomfortable with the public school curriculum, you can take a look at private school options. If you don't want that, you can homeschool. But who gets to be I mean, if we're talking about parents making those decisions, who gets to be the arbiter of, which parent gets to be the arbiter of what gets taught in any particular public school? I'm not really buying that they're learning about critical race theory or even a boiled down. I'm positive that, elementary schools are not learning about systemic racism. And even if they are, even if it's a boiled down version of that, learning about systemic racism is important. I think that that's something that's an issue in this country that gets ignored or completely denied, and I think that's wrong. I think that's what also leads to the division that we're experiencing.
Well, that's going to be the major culture war issue, right? Because the fact is that I, as a parent, believe that if you're going to teach...
You think there's no systemic racism?
I believe that it depends on how you define systemic racism. So if you're talking about legal regimens of racism, no. If you're talking about history has after effects, of course. So I think there's a real problem with semantic overload in a lot of our political conversations. And when people say systemic racism, sometimes what they mean by systemic racism is history has consequences. You can't have 150 years of, 300 years of slavery followed by Jim Crow and that not have after effects, which of course is true. And sometimes what they mean is that every inequality in American public life is due to some systemic inequity that is currently taking place in the United States, which I think is absolutely 100% false.
I mean, we certainly see that playing out in our criminal justice system. Are you going to deny that, or are you going to say that, let's say, African Americans or Latinos are just inherently more criminal or
I'm not going to say either of those things. I'm going to say that
so why are they overrepresented in our prisons?
I mean,
especially when you consider
this may be beyond the scope of our conversation, but the answer is because not all groups commit crimes at the same level. That has nothing to do with genetics. That has everything to do with circumstances.
Can you guys hold those thoughts on education? Because I do want to get back to some of that too, but let me move on to something else we talked about. We talked about the trust issue, and there's some very interesting surveys out there on trust. Gallup did a survey. There's a drop across the board in trust in all institutions except law enforcement, which is very interesting. Congress, sorry for my friends there, is the lowest. Media is down there almost as low as Congress. Those that rank the highest were small business and the military. So this low media rank, is that fair, or is that being manufactured as part of a culture war?
It's fair. I mean, it's entirely fair. I mean, I think that one of the things that we've seen for both good and bad, the fragmentation of media is a result of systemic distrust in the media, and that's existed for a very long time. I mean, that's nothing new. And I think that it's completely fair for people to look at the media. I know there are people on the left who think that the media is too left-wing, right? Obviously, we on the right think that the media is far too left-wing. But I think that sort of distrust in media sources is very often justified. I think that we're requiring more of people than we used to in the past, because once people have realized that there's an inherently political angle to how people cover the news, now we're asking them, if you want a full rounded diet, you actually have to choose it yourself, right? You have to cultivate yourself to watch the Young Turks and then watch my show and decide who you agree with, and where there's sort of a common locus of fact, that's the fact and everything else is the opinion. That's asking a lot of viewers where we didn't used to ask very much of viewers at all, right? You just turn on the evening news and buy whatever Walter Cronkite is saying, whether it's true or not. I think most Americans waking up to that is a good thing. The systemic lack of trust in media has some bad downstream effects sometimes, because when there are no gatekeepers, there are no gatekeepers. So I like the fact that there are no gatekeepers, because I think the gatekeepers were very often biased, but without gatekeepers, sometimes bad stuff gets through.
Yeah, I mean, I think that right now we're experiencing people existing in various filter bubbles. So if you are, for instance, consuming most of your news online, if you like a particular brand of programming, if you, let's say, lean more conservative and you're watching mostly conservative news, algorithms offer up more and more conservative news. And so when you get if you have preconceived notions and all of a sudden you're hearing or reading something that challenges those preconceived notions, you're gonna have a negative reaction to it. And you see that playing out across the board. I'll give you an example. I mean, I have family members who are constantly consuming news online. My mom's a good example, right? You'd be surprised she's my mom, because she's on Facebook. She clicked on a link to, let's say, the Daily Wire, perfect example. Well, Facebook is gonna be offering up more Daily Wire type content. And then all of a sudden, when she's watching the Young Turks, she'll be like, well, you know, I read on Facebook, or I read on the Daily Wire, whatever, that X, Y, and Z happened, and you're wrong, right? That conversation doesn't actually happen that often. But I'm giving you an example.
I was hopeful there for a second.
Right? And so look, there are all sorts of issues with the media, right? I mean, the media for the longest time completely ignored the very real frustrations that workers have been feeling in this country. I mean, the Federal Reserve released data indicating that nearly half of Americans can't even afford a $400 emergency. At the same time, you tune into CNN, CNBC, MSNBC, I mean, it doesn't matter, across the board, and they're like, the economy is doing great. You know, we're seeing record growth, and what they're specifically talking about is the stock market. But the stock market is disconnected from the reality that the majority of workers are experiencing. So I think that that type of stuff leads to people feeling, you know, distrustful toward the press. At the same time, they exist in these filter bubbles and have their preconceived notions. It's hard to challenge that. So there's a lot of different things happening at the same time. I don't blame people for not being so trusting of the media. One other thing that I'll note is that the incentives are always in the wrong place. The kind of stories that I want to talk about on the Young Turks and do talk about on the Young Turks get no attention. They don't do well in terms of the number of views. I want to talk about international news. I want to talk about what's happening in Brazil. I want to talk about what's happening in Ecuador. It'll get like maybe 40,000 views at most. You know what gets a lot of views? I don't know, Anna Kasparian destroys this person, or here's the latest cat fight. Like, I hate it. It's garbage. It's garbage. Because it leads to people not trusting the press, but at the same time, the profits are there. The money is there. And I think you see that play out across the board, whether you're talking about cable news or online media.
Yeah, and at the dinner table, we're having an interesting conversation. It's clearly a generational thing. My generation grew up watching Walter Cronkite and Huntley and Brinkley and all these folks. And one of the things that I saw in your bio was that you got interested in this field because of Barbara Walters. So what happens now to the Barbara Walters? I mean, where does news reporting go? Are we going to, will the nightly news be a thing of the past? And are we simply going to continue to retreat to those mediums that demonstrate that we know everything already? Where's this going to go now?
Well, let me just note, I loved Barbara Walters on ABC's 2020. So I remember as a kid, you know, like getting super excited after TJIF was over because ABC's 2020 would be on. And I was like fascinated by the fact that this woman was getting paid to talk to these incredibly interesting people from around the world. And I was just fascinated by the conversations. That's how I got interested in journalism and the media. But I just feel like the type of conversations that she had, or just news about world events, they don't seem to attract the kind of attention that they used to. And it might be because of an oversaturated market. It might be because conflict tends to sell. Manufactured conflicts tend to sell. But I wish we can get back to a place where journalism still really existed, where there was like ethical standards that were, you know, that reporters abided by, anchors abided by. I wish there was a clear distinction between opinion and actual hard news journalism. You know, this is what I talk about with my journalism students whenever I have the time to teach. I always tell them, I'm like, look, there's a difference between what I do, which is analysis, opinion, and what you should be doing as an investigative journalist, for instance. You know, going out there and actually gathering the news, talking to both sides, not equating both sides and acting as if, you know, you're completely neutral, but making sure that you gather the facts on the ground and report them as they are. It's really hard to find that these days. There's still great journalism taking place. I wouldn't be able to do my analysis or my job without that great journalism taking place. But these are the people who are oftentimes not paid well, ignored, and don't get any of the benefits that someone might in the media if you engage in the conflict nonsense.
Can we go back, Ben, and separate the fact-based from the opinion now, or is it going to be conflated for the foreseeable future?
I mean, I think the truth is that was a relatively modern construct. I mean, if you go back to the foundations of the Republic, the people who were reporting were also doing opinion, and that was true all the way through the beginning of the 20th century. It was really only with Walter Lippmann in the 1920s that you start talking about objective standards in journalism. And there's a difference between an objective standard that you apply to how a story is reported and being an objective reporter, meaning you have no politics at all. And I think, frankly, if you want to reinstall some sort of institutional trust, it would be good for reporters to say, here's who I voted for, and then here are also the facts that I am reporting on, because otherwise it ends up being a gotcha, right? I see how you're reporting that. I see what you're doing. I know what you really think about this story. So that's a major issue. I think the other big issue, obviously, I mentioned gatekeepers before. I'm very wary of the reinstallation of institutional gatekeepers, because if you want to talk about market incentives, the big players have all the incentives to ensure that they are the ones who maintain their access via the gates. And this is one of my great fears with some sites that we've been very successful with, like Facebook, is that reestablishing the idea that there are quote-unquote trusted news sources, and those all coincidentally are legacy media sources, means that everybody who's not a legacy media source, somebody who started up a company in the last 10 years, right, we opened our doors in 2015, we're not legacy media. And so we don't have that legacy. So now you're shutting out all the players who are actually entering the market.
So you actually mentioned, again, just a little bit of a shift because you got my attention earlier. You're both born and raised in California. You left, you stayed, but we had an interesting conversation at the dinner table that maybe your perspectives on California aren't all that different. Ben, I know you said you were afraid your kids were going to have a difficult time because of their political views. So, are you sad that you left California, or tell us?
I have not thought for one day about that decision. That was it was one of the best decisions that I have ever made for my family. We are overjoyed. Florida is a wonderful state. Basically, because of my Orthodox Jewish faith, that means that I had to move to a place that had some significant Jewish resources. And so I was looking for a place that had those resources, was in a red state, preferably with 0% state income tax. And that narrowed it down to basically Dallas and Florida. And so we ended up in Florida. It's wonderful. But I mean, it wasn't just that. It was really a lifestyle thing, because my wife for years was saying, yeah, we're paying higher taxes, but you make a lot of money, so, that's fine. But the problem is you don't get any of the public services back in California. So in our area, which was a fairly decent suburb, you had just an inundation of homelessness in the area. Like, my kids could not walk around the neighborhood. We'd open up our front gate. There'd be a person shooting heroin in their foot literally in front of our house, or a person passed out on the street. We had our business on Ventura Boulevard. We had to board up windows during the George Floyd, some protests, some riots. We had, there was a homeless person who smashed the front plate glass window of our establishment. When we left and we moved our main business to Nashville, and my family and a small core of the business moved to Florida. When we left, we thought that we were going to lose probably half the people working for us. Instead, I think over 90% of the people were like, "You're going, get us out of here." Everybody wanted out. There's a reason people are leaving California.
Well, Anna, you shared some concerns too, and California, like Pennsylvania, lost another congressional seat. So their population is not growing, certainly not at the same rate as Texas, Florida, et cetera. So share some of your concerns, because you talked a little bit about it before.
Sure. So California is poorly governed right now. I was pretty blunt and transparent about the fact that I signed the petition to recall Gavin Newsom. So
I signed it too. We were on exactly the same page before I left.
Right. Now, unfortunately, the individuals running against him were worse than he was or is. And so, unfortunately, when the ballot showed up to in my mailbox, I ended up voting against the recall. But I was hoping that there would be a better candidate to challenge him. I didn't like any of the candidates. Now, the reason why I've decided to stay in California is because I love the state. I know what the state is capable of, and I would much rather stay and fight to make the state better in any capacity that I have. But with that said, the issues in California are endless. You have corruption. I mean, literally a city council member had his office raided by the FBI because of the pay-for-play scheme that he was engaged in. You have real estate developers running amok. You have this effort to build public housing to alleviate some of the homelessness, but at the same time, you have the lawmakers in the state giving these sweetheart deals to developers who are very clearly inflating their prices and taking forever to build said public housing. So there's all sorts of mismanagement. I disagree with the way that they're handling the homelessness issue as well, although I think my solutions might be a little different. I think that this idea of being incredibly laxed with camping has been pretty disastrous and has attracted, homelessness isn't just a California issue, it's an issue throughout the country. But when other states are pretty strict against encampments and California is very lax, what do you think that's going to do? It's going to attract homelessness in the state as well. I want to provide housing for everyone. I consider it a human right. But I think the way that the state is doing it through a public-private partnership has not worked out at all.
Thank you. So let's move on to another public policy issue, one that's being debated in Washington right now. Tax the rich is a very popular sentiment. It's also now a fashion statement, I guess, which we've all seen. So when President Biden looks into the microphone and says, "Pay your fair share," what does that mean?
It means that if you're one of the 55 corporations that literally paid absolutely nothing in federal income taxes in 2020, and in fact received $3.5 billion in tax refunds or rebates, or tax refunds, I should say, maybe you should pay your fair share. But here's the thing, if the tax code is written in a way where corporations can legally take advantage of loopholes and incredibly low effective corporate tax rates, they're gonna do it, right? So it's one thing to say pay your fair share, it's another thing to actually write a tax code that is a little more equitable and ensures that everyone is, in fact, paying their fair share.
Ben, what's pay your fair share mean?
I mean, the obvious answer would be a flat tax, but the longer answer is that the United States has one of the most progressive income tax systems on planet Earth. Most of the systems in, for example, Northern Europe are far less progressive. The top tax rate kicks in a lot lower on the income scale because you have to pay for the large-scale social services. The people who are at the top of the income bracket in the United States, the top quintile, essentially pays all net taxes in the United States. Not some, not most, all. And the reason for that is because there are tax transfers, and the transfer of payments that are inherent in public services do not accrue to the people at the top of the tax bracket. They accrue to everybody else who's receiving that sort of funding. When we talk about higher taxes on corporations, we do not have one of the world's lowest corporate tax rates. We are somewhere in the middle. Look at the OECD countries. We are certainly not the lowest on the totem pole in terms of our corporate tax rate. In fact, right-wing sources like the Heritage Foundation will say that it is much friendlier to do business in places like Denmark or Sweden in many cases than it is to do business in the United States.
Tax rate's pretty high in Denmark and Sweden.
It is. The personal income tax rate is very high in Denmark and Sweden. The corporate tax rate is basically near or on par with that of the United States. If we were to raise our corporate tax rate the way that President Biden is talking about, we'd actually have a higher corporate tax rate than China currently does. The notion that corporations ought to be paying tax at all, in my view, is mistaken, given the fact that the income is immediately either reinvested in the company or passed on to people who immediately pay all of that tax. By the time you actually receive your income in this country, the income's been taxed about 7 different ways. Right? You're getting taxed through the corporation, then it's passed on to you as salary, which is taxed. If you invest it in the stock market and then you sell your stock, that is taxed as capital gains tax. When you die, the government taxes that as well. So how many times can you tax the same dollar before people begin to disinvest?
Let me.
I'd like to respond to that, though.
Okay, go ahead. Okay,
yeah,
go ahead.
To argue that the corporate tax rates in the United States are too high, or that, I mean, first off, let me just touch on the comparison you gave regarding progressive taxes in European countries versus the United States. I mean, yes, the taxes might be higher in those European countries, but what do people living in those countries get in return? They get incredible childcare. I mean, listen, the average American family, 2-income household, spends a whopping 22% of their household income on childcare alone, right? So when you're talking about European countries that offer quality childcare, that, by the way, that opens up the opportunity for people to go to work, something that we should maybe think about as we're dealing with this labor shortage. 64,000 women left the job force in April alone. Not because they want to, but because they can't afford childcare. Everything in this country is privatized. Everything has a for-profit model. And there's consequences that come along with that, including for the business community that might want, a more robust social safety net program, or social safety net to ensure that people feel comfortable enough to go to work, but we don't have that here. So yes, people might pay more in taxes, including those lower on the income scale, but what they get in return is far greater than what people in this country have been getting.
The United States has spent, since the beginning of the war on poverty, some $22 trillion in the war on poverty. We spend an awful lot on social services in this country on a per capita level. In fact, it is very much on par with what the European countries spend. It's just not spent particularly well. When it comes to things like childcare, a very young Elizabeth Warren, before she became Senator Elizabeth Warren, specifically wrote about universal childcare, and she said that it actually was contributing to what she called the 2-income trap in a book that she wrote in the early 2000s. And what she talked about is the fact that there are a lot of women who, for example, may not want to work, and what you're actually doing is incentivizing people to have to go to work because you are now providing childcare, as opposed to providing a competitive advantage to, for example, families where one parent is working. I agree with you, by the way, that childcare is a very difficult issue. I also agree that this is why we used to have, for example, family structures that were conducive to allowing people to help out. There are many businesses that do provide for some form of childcare. We certainly have many businesses that provide for some form of maternity or paternity leave. The European countries, which obviously have been used as a model by a lot of folks on the left, between 1970 and 1993, they experienced exorbitantly low rates of growth. And the reason for that was because they radically overburdened their social safety net systems. It created enormous social problems. It created enormous immigration problems. They had to scale a lot of those back. And
why would it create immigration problems?
It created immigration problems because a lot of people were coming specifically for the benefits.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, yes, that would be to my point, which is it creates more problems very often than it's.
Sure, I guess that's a.
Yes, if I put a free donut sign in my shop, people will come for the.
No, but if you have a robust, if you have a society that actually takes care of its workers, right? If you have a society that makes your life a lot easier, people are going to want to immigrate. It's part of the reason why people wanted to come here. People are going to want to live in countries that have both economic opportunity, but also social safety net programs that, again, just make your, I mean, we talk about freedom. If you look at the World Freedom Index, okay, we like to think of the United States as the freest country. We're not the freest country. You look at that list, we're like pretty low down compared to a lot of these Nordic countries. Denmark is top of that list. So look, Denmark has a mixed economy. When we have these debates about, socialism versus capitalism, I think that those debates are a little ridiculous because every country is not every country, but most countries are mixed economies.
Right. The United States is a mixed economy.
Mixed,
for sure,
exactly.
Yep.
Now, the issue with the United States is there used to be a time when public universities were free, right? You didn't have to dig yourself into a massive hole to get an education. There was a time in this country where there was universal child care. That was cut down to the point where it's like no longer in existence unless you're desperate and have like no money and need to take advantage of some programs that are available in some states. But my point is, like, we have an issue here where on one hand, we're experiencing a labor shortage. We want people to go back to work. On the other hand, people literally can't afford the childcare necessary in order to put their kids in a daycare, put their kids in childcare, and be able to go to work without their entire paycheck.
The Biden bill removes many work requirements for many of the payments that are being made to people, and it's incentivizing people not to go back to work, which is why we have 10 million open jobs in the United States and people not coming back to work.
That is not what that bill does. In fact, that's not what that bill.
Let me move
Are you talking
on.
about the $3.5 trillion reconciliation bill?
I am talking about the $3.5 trillion bill.
The $3.5 trillion reconciliation
The earned income
bill
tax credit
offers
removed.
universal pre-K, which opens up the opportunity for mothers to go to work if they want to go to work. The $3.5 trillion bill, by the way, has all sorts of subsidies for corporations, which I don't really understand why the business community isn't salivating over that, because rather than just going full force with public programs, which I think would be the right way to go, it's offering all sorts of subsidies in these, public-private partnerships. Now, the physical infrastructure bill has a lot more corporate giveaways, which is why the, business community absolutely loves it, offers the chance to privatize public infrastructure, which is why the business community absolutely loves it. But at the end of the day, if we don't create a society where Americans can actually have families and go to work, then we're going to be in a lot of trouble.
So to go back to your immigration point, you made a mention a moment ago of people immigrating to the country for the benefits. That's just abjectly untrue. The fact is that the United States' great immigration growth throughout the beginning of the Republic, all the way up through about 1930, was entirely driven by people who were leaving places that in many cases had broader benefits, places like Germany, to come to the United States where there was no social safety net. The fact is that the vast majority of people who used to leave and come to the United States were coming specifically to build a life knowing that they really didn't have a lot of social safety net. Now, that's not an argument that there shouldn't be some state and local possibility for social safety net, but the notion that the way that you build a successful country that is a world power and is capable of not only making sure that its citizens are taken care of, but essentially making sure that the entire Western world is taken care of, which we did throughout the Cold War, the idea that you do that simply by raising the number of social security payments that you're making to people or benefit payments that you're making to people, that this is the way that you build that sort of economy, is just non-borne out by empirical
Okay, we've had a real far-ranging conversation.
Yes.
Ben, let me ask you another question. Our organization is one that on a daily basis supports whatever you want to call it, the free market system of economic choice. It was disturbing to me, and I think to our organization, when the National Education Association looked at a resolution, I believe it passed one of their committees, that called the free market system one of oppression, but didn't call out other totalitarian regimes. So what does it say when our educators don't seem to believe in the free market system?
Well, I mean, obviously, I love this question. So I will say that the National Education Association is a very far-left group, and so it's not a particular surprise that they're characterizing freedom of the market in that particular way. It also goes back to the conversation we were having earlier about what sort of control parents should have over with the education of their own children. There's a reason I send my kids to private school. The notion that capitalism is a system of unfreedom, while government largesse is a system of freedom, ignores the fact that somebody actually has to pay the bills. It also ignores the fact that all growth, not some, all growth that has ever happened is a result of capitalism, meaning it is the result of free market transactions in which people consent to services and goods from other people, in which people innovate and make new products. There's a reason that we're not still riding horses and buggies around, and that is because of innovation. It's because of incentive structures. It's because people get to keep the fruit of their own labor and then use those fruits of their own labor in order to invest in things. The true growth in the American economy was never just a question of dollars and cents. It was what you got for those dollars and cents. All of that is driven by entrepreneurs who are willing to take risk. And when you disincentivize risk, you end up disincentivizing people from taking those risks. As we become a much more wage-based society, and that has happened for a large segment of the population, that means that you are incentivizing people to not take those risks. And countries that don't have people taking those risks end up being countries that economically stagnate.
Yeah. So those are the ideas that actually, funny enough, have been repeated over and over again in our education system. The idea that, you know, children or students in this country are taught that capitalism is evil is new to me, because I certainly did not get that type of education. Quite the opposite, in fact. You know, freedom is an interesting way of framing it, because the fact of the matter is, if you are financially stable, if you are, you know, in the top 10% of this country, for instance, you probably feel incredibly free. You have options, endless options available to you. You probably have a nice nest egg. You have a little bit of that economic freedom. But, you know, there are two different things at play. Number one, well, when you look at what is incentivized under capitalism, it's actually led to a lot of our own civil liberties being violated. For instance, data collection that takes place on a regular basis without our own knowledge by these social media companies, by these tech companies who make their money not off of advertising, for instance. They make the majority of their money off of selling our personal information to data brokers. It's part of the reason why there are infinite websites right now, so-called data brokers, that just sell our personal information, including where we live, what our phone number is, where we've worked. I don't really feel very free when I'm terrified about my own safety, because there's a, you know, company that's literally making money off of selling my personal information. So there are certain incentives under capitalism that actually do infringe upon our civil liberties and our rights. So that's one thing that I want to note. But the other thing I want to note is, how free do you feel if you're on the precipice of financial ruin, if you can't afford paying for a medical emergency that you're experiencing? What do you do when you don't have health insurance, which tens of millions of Americans right now don't have because of the exorbitant prices associated with it? How free do you feel if you're a wage worker who has not experienced your real wages increase in literally decades? Wages have not kept up with inflation. So how free do you feel when you want to leave your job, but you can't because your healthcare benefits are tied to that work or tied to that job? I mean, freedom, again, is an interesting way of framing it, because I would venture to say that there's a significant portion of the population in the United States, significant portion of workers in this country that do not, in fact, feel free. In fact, have experienced the precarious nature of a capitalistic system that forces them to work endlessly, if they're lucky, in a full-time job, if they're unlucky, in several part-time jobs that they cobble together with no benefits just to make ends meet.
Let me give you 30 seconds, because I want to move on something with that.
I'll just say, I think that there's a bit of a definitional game that's very often played with the word freedom. Freedom obviously has two separate meanings. Isaiah Berlin talked extensively about the difference between positive liberty and negative liberty. What you're talking about are things that people need and things that people want, and that is not the same thing as liberty.
I'm talking about what people need. People need health care.
I don't disagree that people need health care, but to characterize that as a freedom is a very different thing. If the goal of the government is to provide you the opportunity to seek things, right, then that is not the same thing as the government providing those things to you directly. Nor is it the same thing as the government seizing that thing from one person and giving it to you here. To characterize it as freedom is a real mischaracterization. Again, I'm happy to discuss whether or not we should change the programming here, but I think that the sleight of hand that's played by equating freedom of speech, for example, or freedom from being murdered on the street, or freedom to dispose of your capital as you see fit, to characterize that in the same language that would use to discuss why you need a house. It's a difference in kind. It's apples and oranges.
Yeah. So let me just quickly
Okay, go
mention.
ahead. I want to ask you a question.
Point,
Go ahead.
Because this idea of taking something from one person and giving it to the redistribution issue, which I think oftentimes is framed inaccurately. When we talk about redistribution of wealth, I mean, look at the amount of money that gets invested by our federal government in the form of research and development, whether we're talking about pharmaceutical companies or even companies like Tesla. The seed money from Tesla did not come from private investors. In fact, the same year that Obama's administration invested in the failed Solyndra project, they also invested the same amount into Tesla. And guess what? Tesla ended up being a massive success. The only downside to it, though, is that now you have Elon Musk who's whining and crying about having to pay his fair share of taxes when, during the pandemic, he became, for a brief period of time, the richest man literally in the world, right? So
I agree with you about subsidies, by the way.
Right. Yeah. So
welcome to libertarianism.
So look, those investments need to be made. Research and development needs to take place because private investors are not willing to take the risks necessary. It's true.
That is fundamentally untrue.
The federal government's research and development is what led to the internet. I mean, it's a huge part of it.
The fact that the government is a grab bag of cash does mean that the government will eventually invest in some things that are worthwhile. It will also invest in an awful lot of enormous piles of crap,
okay,
right? The fact is, if you don't bear the risk of the downside, you're going to make a lot of bad investments.
We got a few more questions, and I want to get through, and we've got 4.5 minutes. So, Anna, you had said earlier, comment about education, that people can choose to send their kids elsewhere. We are an organization that firmly believes in education choice, and we've got a lot of kids in this state and others that are sentenced to underperforming schools solely by virtue of their zip code. Mm-hmm. We tell families in this Commonwealth, that's your school. We would never tell them that's your supermarket, that's your doctor, that's your dentist, you get to choose. And a lot of that, to be blunt, is because of the collective bargaining agreements with tenured teachers and how much you pay. Can we really get to educational choice? Because a lot of these parents can't afford to send their kids somewhere else. Mm-hmm. Can we really get to that real education choice given the current state of collective bargaining in this Commonwealth and in this country to a large degree?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to say something that's incredibly unpopular with this group, and that's totally fine. The best education in the world currently takes place in Finland. They have the top education model, and they have completely banned private education. I would do the same.
Okay, so first of all, Finland is not the United States, and there's a frequent attempt that it does happen a lot, where people will take something that has worked in Sweden or something that has worked in Norway or something that has worked in Finland, and they'll say, what if we just take that, import it here, and it'll work exactly the same way? And it typically does not work. The fact is that Finnish Americans make more money in the United States than they do in Finland, for example. They have longer life expectancies in the United States than they do in Finland. This is true of Swedish Americans. It's true of Nordic Americans.
Life expectancy in Finland is much higher than the United States.
No, you're correct. Hold on.
It's only 78 years.
No.
Which is, by the way, comparable to Cuba.
Anna,
78 years.
Hold on a second. Mm-hmm. You're correct. The life expectancy in Finland is longer than the life expectancy in the United States. That's not what I said. I said the life expectancy for Finnish Americans is longer in the United States. That is an apples-to-apples comparison as opposed to comparing completely different populations, and that's kind of my point. Okay, the fact is that the United States has an incredibly diverse population, and that diverse population encompasses an enormous number of people who have very different beliefs about how education ought to be done. To suggest that any national standard of education is going to not only please all of those people, but prove to be successful in such a wide variety of circumstances for some 330 million people, we've tried this with a radically increasing federal education budget over the course of the last 30 years, and what we've got is failing public schools all over the United States, except in specific local areas where there have been attempts to take back control locally. I'd love to see more localization, and frankly, I'm quite pleased that if COVID had one decent effect, it was more people taking their kids out of the public schools.
Okay, we got 2 minutes, and so before I get in trouble, so let's go real quick. And this might not be a quick one, but so we've had this discussion in this country, and a member of Congress has called for, and many others have, universal basic income. And her comment was, we should institute a basic universal income for those unwilling to work. Would that be supported in this country?
Would that be supported?
Yeah.
I think on a broad level, the answer is no. Although I think that as time goes on and people become more dependent on government, then the answer is probably getting closer to yes. Should it be supported in this country? The people who are unwilling to work should be paid not to work? Absolutely not. I don't see why the government should be incentivizing people who don't want to work and have no excuse not to work, not to work.
I mean, look, this is an opinion. I have a different view of humanity, and I think most people want to live lives with purpose. So I think most people do, in fact, want to work. I mean, for me, universal basic income is not the end-all, be-all of dealing with the economic issues that people are having. I know that there's been a lot of focus on that because of Andrew Yang and his presidential run and his, demand that people get at least $1,000 a month. I don't think that that's going to solve the issues. I think that we have deeper problems that we need to deal with, and just throwing money at something in the form of a universal basic income is not going to solve that issue. But if we decide, okay, maybe we're going to experiment with this on top of providing a much more robust social safety net, then maybe we're having a conversation. But to me, the issue of UBI is less interesting.
Okay, final question. We're almost out of time. They can't go over too long because then I get the hook. We've talked a lot about where we're going and a lot of pessimism and a lot of concerns. What gives you hope right now?
What gives me hope is the younger generation and just how fired up they are about experimenting with different solutions. Finally, we have a generation that's looking at what's being done in other countries, what's working, what isn't working. We're now seeing more worker co-ops being developed. In fact, there are as many as 1,000 worker co-ops in this country. About 500 of them are in the startup phase. But that is exciting news because now we're seeing companies being formed with workers actually owning the means of production. We're not talking about, the federal government owning the means of production. We're talking about actual workers making decisions democratically within the workplace. I think that's the right way to go about it. I love that it's being experimented with among younger workers, and I think that's the right way to go.
Ben, what gives you hope?
What gives me hope is the fact that because this is such a diverse country and because what we are actually watching in real time is one of the great sorting features that we've seen in American public life in quite a while, right? We're seeing people like me move to Florida. We're seeing people who are in blue states want to stay in blue states. And what that's going to lead to is more diversity in terms of the attempted policies. And that in turn, I would hope, would lead to a couple of things. One, better empirical evidence as to what works and what doesn't. And two, I would really hope that it would lead people to look at the federal government and say, this is just something that cannot control the entire country at once with one giant rubric of rules. We have to let California be California, and we have to let Texas be Texas, and we have to let Florida be Florida. And if we can't agree to do that, when we are going to be locked in a never-ending battle for supremacy, and things are going to get very, very, very ugly before this is over. I think that the great threat to the country right now is the widely held belief that the solution is not at the local level and it's not at the state level, that it is all at the federal level. And what we ought to be arguing about each and every day is how much money and what sort of regulations we ought to pursue for 330 million people. The longer that continues, the more we're going to decide we don't actually want to be part of that body politic, that the rewards being part of that body politic are not worth the risk of people you oppose taking control of that giant gun that is the government and pointing it at you. So I'm really hoping that some form of subsidiarity is going to return, and that there will be some governmental figures who are willing to sort of reestablish the checks and balances and localism that were the hallmark of the Republic at the beginning and should be the hallmark of it again.
Look, I've enjoyed this conversation. Please thank Anna and Ben for being with us. It certainly was a lot of fun. And thanks to all of you for coming out. Appreciate it. Thanks.
Well, that was something. That really was.
The only way that could have been more of a circus is if Shapiro was wearing one of those squeaky noses that had clown shoes on, and Anna rode in on an elephant.
Yeah. Definitely. So, I guess thoughts? I mean, I actually think that, to be honest, Anna was on point with everything.
She held her own.
Yeah, she definitely
Like
did.
I honestly thought like she got some criticism for like debating Ben Shapiro, but like I told her, I'm like, most of the people who are mad at you would actually rather on the left would want to be Ben Shapiro's friend.
Right.
So I'm like, ignore them. They're never leftists. Just ignore them. Don't worry.
Yeah.
You had a good spirited debate.
Yeah. Well, what did I think? She certainly seemed to hold her own.
Mm-hmm.
It was like that video of Muhammad Ali fighting the sumo wrestler. It's a little ridiculous. So,
May I
yes.
just ask you one moment? Has this changed your opinion of TYT at all, or is it still the same? Like of Anna? I mean, I don't know if you had like an opinion of TYT beforehand, but is it still the same, or do you have like a newfound?
Let me put it this way.
Go ahead.
If I had to choose between TYT and say, I don't know, let's think of a really stupid thing like I don't know, Jimmy Dore, I'd definitely pick TYT.
That's fair.
As a critic, I reserve my right to like things sort of until I have a criticism
From a distance.
But, yes.
Yeah.
Like the journalist H.L. Mencken said, if he, whenever he died, it should be noted that he was never converted to anything. That's my stance. I thought it was weird how the whole thing was organized, because they went from talking about civility to trust in institutions to taxing the rich to
all the hits.
To education. I don't know, it just didn't seem to flow very well. There were a lot of tautologies on Shapiro's end. For example, if there's no gatekeepers, there are no gatekeepers. Thanks a lot.
And him talking so fast, where I'm just like, just because you talk fast does not mean you're intelligent.
Right.
Yeah, it's just all those thoughts he doesn't have to process.
He's a fast talking shyster. He doesn't have to put he doesn't have to put anything into his thought. He just
I
fuse right out of him.
I think he wears that kippa because his handler takes it out at the end of the night. Takes out that little microchip so he can shut down and put him in the closet. I thought his term legacy media was ridiculous.
I'm surprised Anna didn't mention like the fairness doctorate. I'm like, if you hate the media so much,
why not revive the fairness doctrine?
Right, and he was like, oh well, if we do that, there's going to be gatekeepers or whatever. It's like you mean people who have information and facts. I'm so sorry that's the thing that you're worried about.
Yeah.
Him saying that Florida was wonderful, especially if he lives there. It's obviously not very wonderful.
Florida he's gotten very conservative in the last few elections because the Democrats have kind of just given up on Florida, and a lot of Cubans are very, very, very conservative and anti-commie and anti-Cuban as a whole. Mm-hmm. So that's why Florida they just given up on Florida as a swing state.
Yeah, I mean, they've given up on them since the 2000 election for sure.
Yeah. I don't think
the only people who don't give up on Florida is the Bush family.
Oh yeah, definitely.
But
especially the fact that the brother is the former governor there.
Yeah.
I was thinking like, what's that?
I said, please clap.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Yep.
I was thinking like the kind of the faint clapter that was going on for Shapiro. Ben, like in his head, he's thinking like in the words of Jeb Bush, please clap. I was actually going to put that in the chat, and I was like, no, I'll just say.
The audience did kind of seem on Shapiro's side because there was a point that Anna made, And they did start to clap for her, and then he's like, well, we need to let Shapiro speak. And it's like, you should, you let them clap for Shapiro. You should let them clap for Anna.
Because it was like a very conservative, like place that they were at or whatever, whatever. So that's why when she was like, hey, if I get to debate a conservative in front of a conservative audience, that'll be good for me.
Yeah, definitely.
But
it's also kind of like, she didn't really have a lot of people there. I think she mentioned on Twitter after the debate, like, she didn't have a lot of people there on her side. It was like mainly just her husband had accompanied her there.
Christian, yeah. If I drove, I would have went there.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And I mean,
Anna.
I was gonna say I don't like taking my cues from the audience to decide who's winning an argument. Crowds don't usually know anything, but I thought it was interesting that everything that Ben Shapiro brought up as a problem could definitely 100% be tied to capitalism. And at the very end, he does this weird little rear guard action where he's like, well, freedom's not the same as being able to acquire property. Right. Which is not what he said. He did Politico talk, but that's what he said.
That reminds me of that infamous Daryl. Sorry to interrupt it. Like Daryl Perry interviewing Sam Cedar interviewing Daryl Perry on the Majority Report in 2016, and it's like he just became like Perry became belligerent when he was explaining freedom and liberty to Cedar, and just like got all out of it. It's like, oh my god.
Yeah, I just found that statement revealing. It's like, okay, so capitalism is you're free to starve, but you're not free to buy anything. Pretty much. I'm glad Anna brought up Elon Musk basically being a government baby.
Yep, sucking on the teat of the government.
And then he whines when they want to.
I bet Shapiro tried to ignore that. It seemed like
I don't like subsidies either. Okay, that's not the point. But okay,
you're like I would say Shapiro is partly like Elon Musk is contemporary, given the fact of how corporate they are. I mean, they both got all the money in the mostly all the money in the world, and he's trying to shy away from all that and become more libertarian. Mm-hmm. I mean, he's probably sending when they were talking about schooling. It's you probably are you say you don't want to be for a tuition-free college, but you fucking you send your children probably to the biggest most expensive charter school in America in the state of Florida. Getting that privileged education, are you?
I thought it was funny when he was like, "Oh, I don't want my children to be unfairly discriminated against for their political views," and it's like, you mean your political views, not theirs.
Using your kids as a scapegoat to the reason why you won't send them to public school.
Or why he left California. It's funny too because Ben Shapiro lives in Florida. Joe Rogan lives in Texas. Everyone's moving to Texas and Florida, and I'm like, Texas is about to go blue, so enjoy that.
Yeah.
But Dave Rubin refuses to leave California because he's a gay man, and I doubt he would be accepted. He knows that even those within his media circle don't like him or respect him.
He won't even bake his husband won't even, Ben Shapiro's I won't let his husband, David, bake a cake for him on his anniversary.
Yeah.
That was one of the funniest Michael Brooks show clips I've ever seen.
Right.
And when Bolsonaro got COVID for the first time.
That was so funny. That one is hilarious.
I reacted to that and I couldn't, my face was sore. My cheeks were frozen. It was just that laugh was just too much.
Infectious laugh.
There were two main things that I saw in this debate that actually reminded me of the debate between Ben Burgess and Charlie Kirk, besides how one-sided they were. Is that first off, it seems that whenever conservatives talk about the government, they never talk about social relations. They're never talking necessarily about the economy, except to talk about how much the government's spending. They talk about the government's role in understanding and protecting human nature, or what Charlie Kirk called virtue, which is absolutely insane. Because first off, governments aren't built on philosophical premises, they're built on practical necessities. But secondly, because of the fact that a government is supposed to be dealing with the relations of its citizens, I thought Anna's point that benefits should actually benefit people was a very good point. Like, I personally think that a government, whenever created, if you want to be a civilization, that government needs to give prosperity to its citizens. And if you can't give anything to your citizens, if they can't benefit, you're not a civilization, and people shouldn't live there. The second thing that I noticed that was a lot like Charlie Kirk is Ben Shapiro harping on California. He did it the same way Charlie Kirk harped on Bernie Sanders, because they want to tie you to something that they like to go after. And it's like, well, I don't know why you're going after Anna about California. She's not the governor. She's not running the state.
Yeah. I mean, she chooses to live there, though. But I'm like, you'd be amazed how much she doesn't like California a whole lot and knows that there needs to be improvement. So it's like, he's not good at gotchas.
Yeah, well, none of them are.
Like, seriously.
That requires a little strategy,
and like the other thing that she was talking about was like, as far as like the recall of Gavin Newsom, it's like she had to vote against the recall. She didn't like Gavin Newsom, but on like, if there wasn't like a left-wing alternative to him that was like I would say probably like Bernie Sanders type. I'm gonna say that. Then she would vote for that person, but there wasn't. So she had to kind of go her apples and oranges. Was she gonna vote? Was she gonna vote for what I call a moderate or even neoliberal incumbent governor like Newsom, or vote for a right-wing, homophobic, bigoted talk show host?
Yeah.
Or even still a reality show host that had no chance of being a governor in the first place. In the very beginning.
And also too, like the conservatives, like the right loves putting the left in a very, very tiny box. Like they think that everyone on the left is exactly the same.
Right.
Yeah.
But
we're not a monolith.
Like, not always the case.
Right. Well, and they always accuse the left of doing that to the right. They're like, you think we're all the same. It's like, well,
kinda. And the ones who aren't like that go out of their way to defend those who are like that, like Ben Shapiro, Dave Rubin, Joe Rogan. They will defend the MAGA cult. They will defend the insurrectionists. They will defend, white supremacists. They will defend Kyle Rittenhouse. So it's like, I mean, meanwhile, we will call out and rip each other a new asshole over like the minor inconvenience that doesn't even really matter in the large spectacle of things on the left.
Yeah.
It always it's strange to me always that like Rogan is like all over the place politically. Like 1 minute he's on the left and then like the next minute he's on the right. Like, dude, just pick a fucking side already.
That's what happens when your whole ideology is just being anti-establishment.
Yeah.
It can only get you so far.
Or it obviously could be because of where he lived. I mean, as we just said, I would move from Cali to Texas.
I was gonna say it's an obvious product of those brain pills he takes. But
ivermectin.
So I thought it was interesting what she had to say about the culture war, because
I actually want to say more.
Go ahead.
So like it really pisses me off. I hope I don't get flagged for saying that, but it really does seriously when when we were just talking about like the left or the right tries to pin the left down in some fashion. It's like, doesn't it feel weird that like everybody on the right, like all the Trump people, all like we know who, hopefully know who they are. They always through Trump's his hopefully one and only presidential campaign into the presidency, they talk so much about being against cancel culture and woke culture and political correctness, and like they themselves bow to it as much as the moderate left does. I mean, it's just so freaking strange, you know?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, I was gonna say that I appreciate it. First off, I thought Ben was absolutely ridiculous talking about critical race theory. He obviously doesn't know what he's talking about. He's like, it's being taught to young children.
Yeah, that's why she was like, really?
Well, I appreciate that she was able to shrug off some of the things he said that were ridiculous, where instead of going down that rabbit hole, she just let it stand.
She's a mass debater.
Yeah, definitely.
But what's interesting is Ben taking the culture wars relevant side, because he'll whine about it when it's against conservatives, but he is defending it here. And I thought it was sly of him, and I'm glad Anna pointed this out as well. It was sly of him to say that, oh, Anna's saying that it doesn't matter, and she's like, well, no, I'm not saying it doesn't matter. I'm saying that it's mostly manufactured, which is different. It's a manufactured issue. It's a manufactured problem.
Yeah.
And
especially considering Ben Shapiro kind of benefits from it all, considering he's one of the basically the consistently top viewed profile page on Facebook or on Google. If you Google Twitter, not Twitter.com, just Twitter, whose Twitter accounts pop below? Donald Trump, even though he's permabanned for now.
Yeah, right.
Ben Shapiro, all the conservative hit makers.
Joe Rogan, Dan
Not
Crenshaw,
a single leftist.
Yeah, they are the greatest cultural warriors we have.
Yes.
So, it was.
They're the greatest anti
culture war.
Going against culture war, but then bowing to it themselves behind closed doors.
I thought it was funny when he tried to say it was the left causing reactionary responses or the far left, which I've always described America as an airplane with two right wings, Republican and Democrat, and the left is barely there.
Yeah.
You would wish they'd take over the cockpit, but they can't.
Right.
They get so much from all sides.
Yes, because
including their own.
Yeah. The liberals are like, you're too far left. Or
you don't know what you're doing. You need more experience.
Right. The right says you're too far left, and the center's like, oh, you're the same as the far right, and it's like, it's like, I know directions are hard, but this is your left hand and this is your right hand on different sides. Anyhow, his point about critical race theory was just absolutely bonkers. Yeah. And that's one of the things I always tell people is like, look, critical race theory is not being taught to children. It's a legal theory. If you are what they're trying to do, the sneaky thing they're trying to do is equate it with discussions about systemic racism. Yeah. Which are important to have with, elementary students.
Yeah. I grew up in South Carolina. I was taught that reparations were already a thing, that the descendants of slaves get to own the property and sell the property the plantations that their ancestors worked on. I'm like, that doesn't solve issues in other states outside of the South. I'm sorry. That's not how you do it.
Right. Yeah, no, absolutely. But those conversations are important to have, and those are the conversations they don't want to have.
I'm surprised they didn't go into further. I mean, obviously, because they only had a limited amount of time, that they didn't go into further discussions of other topics like international politics.
Yeah,
of the left and the right. Can you imagine it? What
they did a little bit about the Finland, how Finland is far superior to the United States, clearly. But
if left-wing Brazilian politics of Lula da Silva would have been brought up,
Oh, because she would have definitely took a lot of pointers that she like learned from Michael Brooks for that one.
Honestly, like I can't believe I'm saying this, but there has to at least be yet another debate between these two where those topics could be brought up, should be brought up, and she will ice him. I'm not even kidding.
Yeah.
The last time he had a brush with international politics was when he had that interview with that British Tory, and that guy just absolutely destroyed him.
Oh,
and he's not, and they're on the same side. And he left. He whined about it. And he left.
He accused him of being a leftist.
He accused him. That was great. It's like, listen,
Joker.
That's why you get certain. That's why you get like certain quote unquote leftists to like join like RT, because it's like, oh, they don't really know a whole lot about international stuff, so they can say whatever, we can,
whatever the hell they want. Yeah.
And that'll be fine.
Yeah. Now, the only thing I'll say that Ben got right, and I give the devil his due in order to avoid selling my soul, but he talked about how the United States for a very long time has had a media that definitely wasn't. The media's always had issues with trust and accountability and the ability to report things accurately. Not taking it from him, but taking it from Nancy Eisenberg, who wrote about Aaron Burr. The newspapers at the time of the founding fathers slanted in all sorts of directions. They were definitely at the bidding of their own political parties. And so he got that right. But as soon as he started talking about legacy media and Walter Cronkite,
smearing the good name of Mr. Cronkite.
Well, he also brought up Walter Lippmann. Yeah. I think he was just throwing around names he's heard before.
Yeah.
Let's see. I thought it was interesting that he thought immigrants are a problem. Full stop. He just Anna pointing out that benefits would bring people to the country and entice people to come to enjoy the prosperity of the United Nations.
Yeah.
He's like, oh, that just causes immigration. It's like, what? Yes, what?
Like, yeah. I actually, what's so funny too is I've had the privilege, the honor to debate the Ben Shapiro on Twitter way back in like 2013, 2014 over trans issues, and because like there was this moment that went viral between him and this trans reporter named Zoe, I believe it was her name, and she like put her hand behind his neck and she's like, I could take you on or whatever. He's like, that's a threat, that's assault. He's like, I'm just pointing out that women, as in quotes, can be just as violent as men. I'm like, wow, really? Like, I'm like, you're not. I'm like, okay, we can be.
Right.
What's your point? Again, I don't understand what your gotcha is supposed to be, dude.
What I found interesting, though, was in that discussion about immigrants and benefits, is he contradicts himself, because he starts out, he says that the problem with having good benefits in the United States is that it will bring immigrants to the United States. But then he contradicts himself later and he says people don't come to the United States for benefits. And he rambles on about how they left Germany or whatever to come over here, places that had benefits that were better than ours. And it's like, well,
ultimate facepalm.
Yeah, well, it's like you're leaving out a lot of different, social issues and crises and things.
I think what Anna said was totally on point about how like immigrants who come over here, like they're just trying to get they're trying to get their life together. They're trying to start a new life.
Especially considering the U.S. government is responsible for a lot of the issues that bring them over here in the first place.
Right. And he's throwing around. He threw around a lot of like what I call Trumpian responses to the question of immigration.
Yeah, another way to phrase that is brain dead responses.
Yeah,
but
Well, I always thinking Trumpian. I mean, because he's such a Trumper.
He tried to not be Trumpian, but like he does come off as being rather Trumpian.
Well, he's a never Trumper who did it as a performance. You know, if you remember, the National Review was all against Trump and whatever for like, what was it, a month or 2 months, and then like I guess we have to get behind him. It's like, wow, your opposition's
he's the nominee.
Great.
So
much for the never Trump. So much for Ted Cruz.
Man, watching a debate like this, I just have to say I should have just microdosed or something. I should have took an edible.
You might have had fun.
Yeah. You would have been like, Anna's so good. Look at her go. Yes, queen. Ben, shut up.
I have to say, I've never microdosed in my life, but I was thinking, boy, I should have just taken something like a drug of some kind.
I took one and rewatched her debate at Politicon with Tommy Lahren.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, oh god, this blonde lady's loud.
Oh god, yeah, she's loud.
You know what's so funny though? I'm like, who thought Politicon was a good idea?
I sort of remember Politicon. I remember the one in like.
I live like a capitalist every single day, Jank.
Yeah, I was gonna say the one that Jank was at. Was it? If refresh my memory if I recall, I could be wrong, but
you debated Ben Shapiro at one point.
Yeah, it wasn't that one where Shapiro Jank debated Shapiro. Didn't he debate Steven Crowder at one point at Politicon?
No, I don't think so. Sam Cedar tried debating Steven Crowder, and his dad was like, he's sick. He can't do it.
Yeah. I do,
Which explains Sam Cedar, what a fucking nightmare. That was it. They tried recreating that between Destiny and Jackson Hinkle, and it didn't work.
Yeah.
I'm like, he tried doing that, and Destiny was like,
not having that shit.
Okay. Like, I'm like, you can't repeat that moment. You can't recreate that glorious moment.
I mean, all Steven Crowder ever did was just show his co-host. Didn't even put himself on camera, and it's just like,
yeah.
And you used
for a guy who voiced the brain of Arthur, he's not that bright.
I was gonna say, you fucking voiced it on a kid show.
Oh god. Well, maybe that's why Brain has so few lines towards the last few seasons of Arthur. Anyhow, I thought it was interesting that he said that thing about we spent $22 trillion since the Great Society on education. Anna should have asked him how much we spend on the military since the Great Society.
Yeah.
Because because they never talk about government spending equally. It's always how dare we benefit the people, but then we give as much money as we can to the Pentagon.
Yeah.
By divine right, of course.
Like the other thing I wanted to mention was like the sort of going back to the media discussion about how like Anna can do a story on say TYT that isn't covered on cable news, like a foreign policy story that gets ignored by TYT, and then like all of a sudden like the only thing that pops up on YouTube is this video of like Anna Kasparian gets mad and angry and is beefing with these people, and it's like doesn't like anyone like she's a journalist. She's a different kind of journalist, but she's really got that serious journalist like cred.
And even just, like when TYT was kind of like doing like TMZ related stuff, when she would do like the second hour, like she was like, can we please start doing more like serious stuff? Like I can do the serious stuff too, you know? That's why she's had her own shows in the past. That's why she's so busy. So she gets to host like the first hour by herself on Wednesdays now.
God,
she's capable.
No yeah, I so miss No Filter. I'm not even gonna lie.
Yeah.
Right.
RC, you're like, right. Gotta get this is my favorite episode.
Moving up. Yeah. I was gonna say I can't. I want to comment, but I haven't seen a lot of
But it is true though. The algorithm favors drama. It favors the sensational crap. So when she's doing when they're doing a serious story on what's going on in Brazil or whatever, it gets nothing. And then when they talk about some like Jank and Anna went off today on the progressives not doing what they said they were going to do about the reconciliation bill. Build back better, build back less, whatever it's called now these days. Who knows? Yeah. Build nothing is what I'm calling it at this point. She was fired up. Jank was yelling, pounding his fists on the desk, and I'm like, oh boy. I'm like, watch. I'm like, is this going to get anything? Is this going to get anything? I bet with the right title it will, though.
Yeah.
Because they're fired up. So I'm like,
Jank gets fired up on Twitter. I mean, you would expect half of the algorithm there to agree with him, but it's always this oh boy, you're nothing, you sell out. Again, it's just with the whole money thing. And whatnot. Anyway, RC.
Yeah, no, I just find it weird when people are going around, oh, this person's a sellout or whatever, and it's like,
what were we discussing before the mics went on about Jimmy Dore and all that side of the left? What are they relying on? What are they relying on?
You mean the quote unquote populist left?
Whatever they want to call themselves.
I hate them.
What are you saying?
I mean, ultra leftists, horseshoe theory.
Horseshoe leftists. Dirtbag left is not bad.
I read an article by Freddie DeBoer where he pointed out that the historical use of the word ultra, as in ultra left, was actually coined for Marxists to sort of distinguish themselves from people who had beliefs that were either ridiculous or untenable, or just things that you can't actually achieve or maybe don't even want to achieve. And so I would consider them ultra leftists in that historical sense of the term.
Right.
I don't like to talk about Jimmy Dore. He's not even entertaining as a clown. He's just
I have a few friends who are starting to realize okay, something's up, and I'm like, we've known this for the last few years.
Yeah.
But
I've had
there are good people out there, though. There are good people out there that talk about the issues, that don't get too many views or whatever, and they get the attention of good people like Mike of the Humanist Report, or even like David Dole or Nomiki, and they try to platform them.
Right. Yeah,
which is important. That's what I like about this community now is that those of us who try to live by Noam Chomsky and of course the late Michael Brooks and all those good people out there who are we got to look out for each other. We got to help each other out. We got to, give each other a voice. We can't be doing this for just the fame, for, hoping to get the notoriety or whatever. We're doing this because we like having these discussions.
We like what we do. It's passionate. And
right. Well, and also I say it from the perspective that, in my opinion, I think that the American left is dead, if not on life support. And so, and I think the way to rebuild it is, helping out, podcasters and YouTubers and trying, and for me, I try to platform fellow writers who write about important things. And I think that's the only way, you can start is you got to start somewhere.
Yeah. And politics is everywhere.
Yes.
So there's Forrest Miller who has his own, movie night extravaganza where it's all about, movies, but there's discussions about politics and stuff like that because there's always hidden messages in film, in art, in music.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, there's stuff
there's
Meet
Jason
the Left.
Miles. Meet the Left.
Yeah, Meet the Left. This is Revolution. A lot of different podcasts that are very good and very very interesting. There you go.
Dan Simpson is one of the hardest working streamers that I know. That man streams for 12 hours a day, and I'm like, how do you do it?
Who are you talking about?
Right.
Dan Simpson.
And oh yeah, he's the guy that got me into this. Well, Kenzo Shibata, and then Dan.
Yeah, Kenzo. Yeah.
Set me up
Seems
with
like
Dan.
we're all in the same like circle of people, so
Right.
you know,
Yeah.
that's comforting to know.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Absolutely. Right.
I just wanted to say I don't see a lot of comments in my chat, but I know Christina, you're sharing this on your Twitch, so
Yeah,
is
I'm
there
hosting
any-
this.
Is there any comments there you could throw up? Maybe.
I
possibly?
don't know. Let me check because quite a few people are not streaming tonight, so I'm like, maybe people will be tuning in.
I gotta learn I gotta adjust my hours, like when there's
Yeah.
the best time to stream.
Believe it or not, the best time to stream is like 7 to 10.
7 to 10.
I do 6 to 9 because I work. Like that's the thing about doing this is figuring out a schedule, not trying to overdo it, and just finding a formula that works, and also networking and befriending other people. So like
Definitely.
when there's other streamers that are like, hey, do you want to go on? Do you want to collab? Do you want to do this? I'm like, definitely, let's do it.
Right. Yeah. I was
Well,
gonna say.
we have 2 viewers.
What's that?
We have 2 viewers, so that's nice.
Yeah, I got 3 on my side. I
Yeah.
had 4 for a moment.
If my counts,
People like to learn.
I was gonna say if my cats count, I got 3 viewers.
Nice.
You guys are, I'm telling you, you guys are so lucky. I don't mean to go off topic, but you guys are so lucky you have animals in here where you live. I can't even have a cat. I've wanted 2 cats in my life.
You should definitely like convince, like, hey, like I'll keep my apartment clean, because we've rented places in the past where they're like no pets. I'm like, my mom's like, I clean for a living, so obviously we can have a cat because they're easier to take care of.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, I was gonna
like
say
the other side of the coin is sorry, Charlie. The other side of the coin is like it is a little much responsible. There is a lot of responsibility in taking care of pets. But anyway, Charlie.
the only thing I was gonna add a snarky comment. I was gonna say you think that they're a great gift, but my blinds behind me would beg to differ. They destroyed them. I was gone for a day and I came back and
You're like, oh my
destroyed.
god, what the?
Yeah, and they just came up to me and they're like, we're so happy to see you. It's like,
Look what Antifa did. That's the
Yeah.
oh god.
God.
Yeah, I was gonna say, John and I actually ended up meeting because we were both on Forrest's show. We were talking about the birds.
Yeah.
We had interacted on Facebook like prior to that, like for some time prior, and I think that sent him, because I was co-hosting movie night at the time, and for a brief period, and then we did For the Birds, and then
we did Nightmare on Elm Street. Me, Rayvana, and good old Andy. So that was fun.
Yeah, I've been
That
on
was,
there.
One.
Yeah, I was gonna say. Sorry, go ahead.
He wants us back for Nightmare 2, and Rayvana, she's never saw like any of she does not do horror, and I'm like, trust me, this is like 1984, severe dated. You're good, you'll be fine. But I'm like, you're gonna love Freddy's Revenge because it's literally the gayest horror movie of all time.
And then hopefully Freddy versus Jason.
He wants us to come back for the whole franchise, and I'm like, oh god, we're gonna have to watch Freddy's Dead Final Nightmare then and discuss that piece of crap.
I'm waiting for him to do Kevin Smith movies. He does have Clerks in mind, so.
Right. Well, I was gonna say I was on there for the birds, and then I was on there for Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah.
Yeah. What a fun movie about a loving family. You know, living by family values out there in Texas.
Ben Shapiro would love that movie.
He talks about moving to Texas and Florida.
There we go.
Show him that movie before he moves to Texas.
Yeah.
Yeah. Family values. You know, the woman stays in the kitchen, cooks.
Yeah. It was funny because last night I was on Josh's Mayor of Mediatown. Go check him out on Twitch because he does a lot of good stuff and also gaming as well. And we were talking about a Phantom of the Opera film that Freddy Krueger himself, they really marketed it that way. And it's basically about a composer who's a literal incel. Like, he's never happy. Even after he manages to get the girl, he's not happy. He solicits prostitutes. He skins people because he needs a mask. And it's just like, man, this movie was so ahead of its time, but the political undertones are there.
Wow.
Oh man. Well,
I'm just like minute escaping and then putting full screen again just to see if there's any chats that come in. Because I got 5 viewers right now.
I sent the link to Anna.
Oh, good. All right.
Yes.
I shared it on my page.
And I shared it on my Twitter too, and I got quite a few. See, you notice like the later you go, like the more, because on the weekends I stream longer. I stream like late, and then to like 3 o'clock in the morning. I call it late and lonely. And the weekends, a lot of people don't stream, so that's a good opportunity to get like engagement.
That's like the weirdest. You think that'll be the best time to stream on weekends? When
but surprisingly, a lot of people need time to like recruit and like unwind and relax. So I'm like, that's my time.
Yeah.
It's like when you have a full-time job during the week.
Collabing on the weekends is like the best thing ever. Probably. Okay.
I was gonna say I wouldn't know. I can write anytime I want. Oh man. Yeah.
We used to do the Sunday stream. We used to talk so much about it.
We did, and then I need it that day because I'm writing a novel. So yeah.
Plug it. What is it about?
It's called Tell It to the Birds. It's not completely written yet. It's a psychological thriller. Long story short, though, it's about a guy who doesn't believe birds are real, and he lives with somebody, haven't decided who that person is yet, but they buy a bird, and most of the story is following him trying to, and then successfully killing the bird, trying to prove that he's right.
I love a good psychological thriller.
And then he ends up, he ends up in an insane asylum at the end. And I have the last scene in mind, which I'm not going to say because I don't want to ruin it. But
don't spoil your own novel. Right. Don't do it.
I would never. But yeah, so that's why I'm not here on Sundays anymore. But while I'm trying to write that novel, I do write my polemics and stuff. I take pride in the fact that I sent a article in once to somebody, and they sent it back, and they told me that they kind of enjoyed it, but they said I abused the reader, which is the point. It's to grab the reader and shake them, be like, "What's wrong with you?"
Yeah.
So, I do that on my Substack. Are we plugging things now? Because
you can.
Plug away.
All right. Well, I write for my Substack, which is called Ferocia Anime. That's a Latin word, contrary to what Forrest says. It's spelled FEROCIA ANIMI, which means ferocity of the mind. That's what that means. Nevertheless, it's on Substack. We also have a Facebook page, same name, and we also have a Twitter, which is at Ferocia _anime or anime. God damn it, anime. I'm sure if I change the anime, I was gonna say I'm sure if I change the anime, more people would probably look at it. But anyway, but yeah, that's what I do. I write hateful things for good causes.
I finally managed, RC, to put the link in the last video we did, so people should hopefully find. And the same with you, Christina. I will certainly, if you give me whatever you're working on, current and upcoming, I will be sure to put links in the description so people can find your work.
Yeah, you can just find me on Twitch, on twitch.tv/Christina, because I'm working on eventually upgrading my PC because my CPU is crap for my PC.
Yeah, like right now you're kind of. I can hear you, I can see you, but you kind of like the start of the stream you were great, and then like now you're kind of glitchy.
Yep, go figure. That's how it is.
It's
But
it's the FBI. They don't want to allow this.
Yeah, they don't like that I'm wearing Bernie.
They don't like the fact that I'm probably gonna swear, and like I have to like reprimand myself psychologically about not swearing.
don't worry.
Like at the other side of the coin, Christina.
I'm kind of working on a Harley cosplay that's being made for me. It's finally gotten shipped out, so I'm looking forward to showing that off on stream. Woo! Because I love Harley. She voted for Bernie.
Quinn is like my favorite. Has now become my favorite Batman.
She is anti-imperialism. She is a leftist. She calls cops pigs, so that's good.
There you go.
I now want to get a Harley Quinn poster and just post it on my. What I want to do, like when we were talking, I think during the Twitch stream last night that you had done, you talked about getting having like a $40 camera. Like what you, I guess
that's what I have right now. A $40. One of my viewers sent me a non-Shiba camera.
That's what I'm thinking of doing. I was looking at some cameras like that literally last night on my phone.
Yeah.
I was like, I'm just gonna get a camera instead of using my this little thing that has the green dot. I'm just gonna put a camera on there.
I was using a $100 Logitech camera, and it didn't have auto or manual focus. So I'm like, I can get in close, I can back away, it focuses and stuff like that. So that's wonderful for me.
Yeah, and I guess I need to do what you're gonna do, which is do like the Twitchathon where you raising money to get a new CPU. I guess is what it is. PC.
Yeah, you can actually set up your own, like, because you're not an affiliate yet, because that means the only way you can make money, you can set up your own tip page, so people can send you money that way.
Yeah, well, that's probably better because the Patreon ain't giving me. No one's donating to the Patreon.
Yeah.
Yeah. Same here on the Substack. The only person who subscribed to my Substack is Jason from This Is Revolution, and I think Amy. Amy from These Are Bad Movies. I think they're the only ones, which I appreciate. The whole $14.
My Patreon is just like I'm probably gonna have to do that. I'm gonna have to like do the what Chris was. Okay, do you go by Christina, Chris? What like is it?
You can call me Christina. My family calls me Tina, but I do like when my friends call me Chris.
Okay, I'll stick to Christina.
Yeah.
You can call me Bob Dylan.
Okay, Bob Dylan. How does it feel?
No, my hair is not curly enough for that.
And your voice isn't raspy enough.
Oh, I know it's not.
Like for me, it's John. Like my full name is Jonathan.
So we can't call you Johnny Boy.
I have been called that. I don't really care. It doesn't bother me. I've been called Johnny. I've been called John, Johnny Boy. If you call me Jonathan, like my full first name, I probably feel like I'm in trouble.
Okay, Jonathan.
Yeah. What I do.
I was gonna say, I don't know. You can just call me Roberts, I guess, or Charlie.
Well, Anna's called me Ross. On the day before my 30th, or I'll do 30 next year. The day before my 29th birthday, I reached out to her and a smattering of other lefty host people that I like, and said I was turning 29 and that I supported them and whatnot. I reached out to Anna. I reached out to John Idarola. I reached out to Emma Vigeland, and it really moved me. Was Anna was like, "Happy birthday, Ross! Thank you so much for the sweet message." And aside from that, I mean, that really made my day. Yeah. But there was like a whole bunch of other BSers like talking like, "When are you and Jay gonna give Aaron Mate an apology?" I'm like, I'm gonna mute this person.
Yeah, I'm doing the thing where I'm just gonna block people who want to like debate. Like I had someone in my chat debate that I knew someone who got the COVID vaccine and now they're my friend and now they're gay, and I'm like,
What?
I'm
That's
like,
most
this
creepy.
person's like, I'm trying to have a serious debate about the vaccine. I'm like, you don't want to start off with that as your point. So block, bye bye. I want to have a safe community for my Twitch, subscribers, for my Twitch community. I want, those who are trans to feel safe. I want those who are, people of color to feel safe. Like, I don't want to deal with those people.
There are any number of people on any given day that I walk by, and it's like I should be able to just throw eggs at these people. Just nothing too violent. I'm not gonna throw
glitter bomb,
but
glitter bomb them.
Glitter bomb inside an egg.
Water bomb.
It's
there you go.
Yeah, there you go.
A water balloon full of like paint and glitter. And
yeah, you see, it's a small egg, but on the inside there's water and glitter.
Or do what that one guy did to Phyllis Schlafly, a pie in the face.
Yeah, you see. Well, if you had a egg with like paint, water, and glitter inside, you just call it an Easter surprise.
There you go.
But yeah, no, but I'm a misanthrope anyway, so most people annoy me. I'm gonna be a great old man. I'm gonna be yelling at people to get off my lawn.
You say that everything makes you angry. Almost, you've said to me.
Everything irritates me. I wouldn't say it angers me.
I must have misinterpreted that or misunderstood that.
How dare you misinterpret? Now I'm irritated.
There's nothing wrong with that. I mean,
I'm a jolly cynic. I enjoy how bad everything.
I get irritated by the fact that like the construction people, even though I know they're just doing their jobs, like, do you really have to close up so many roads and sidewalks that are easy to get around? So I don't have.
I hate when I want to I hate when I have like a Monday off and I'm like, oh, I can stream in the morning, like all day or whatever. Just do a Dan Simpson Hassan thing, and then the lawn people are so loud, and I'm like, thank God I have the noise reduction thing on because I have bad ADD. I get distracted, so it's like when I hear the leaf blower, I'm like,
Yeah, my autism tends to act up when I try to articulate my thoughts. I don't want to like jump into anyone else's conversation when they want to talk. That's why I'm always like saying sorry to interrupt. And Charlie or someone that I have.
I don't have either of those problems. I just hate people. So
you just love hate people. You just like hate people.
Love hate. Don't say that. You're gonna ruin my reputation. I'm gonna have to do something. I'm gonna have to be mean to somebody outside on the live stream.
Yeah.
Just yell.
This is gonna yell at your mailbox, or not your mailbox, but your mailman that gives you mail. Like, oh my God, what happened here?
He would probably want to have a conversation with me because I don't get my mail very often, and so he ends up
especially with the misery messing up the postal service these days. There's the joy to be had here.
Mm-hmm.
Just ask Dave Rubin.
Right. Don't ask Dave Rubin anything. Unless you can keep it to one syllable words, very slow. Hand him some index cards.
Remember when Dave Rubin had his idol Larry King on, and Larry King was just not interested?
Yes.
Yeah, he had his flip. He was talking to his son on a flip phone about
baseball. That was so good, and Dave Rubin's like,
just like seething red inside.
Yes.
He was looking like he was trying to be like nice, but he was just so pissed. It was like one of the best TMBS clips. I have so many like there's one guy, I have to send it to you guys, of like this caller once that called into the Majority Report when Michael was hosting one day.
Yeah.
It was at a Turning Point USA deal that Dave Rubin was lecturing at. It was at a college, I think in University of, I want to say Iowa, but I could be wrong.
You're probably pretty close.
Yeah. And he calls into like Majority Report and says everything. Like he was like, I'm probably not as on the left as you guys. Probably more like I think he said like economically on the left, but I can say that you guys are all right about Dave Rubin from the start, something along those lines. And they found a clip. They found the actual caller, and Michael could not contain himself. He started laughing, and the caller, I think his name is like John, I think was his name. No relation to me.
Are you sure? Are you sure about that? No.
Yeah, I'm most definitely sure. Was like putting up all these things, these issues, and Dave was like, well, I'm not so sure what you're talking about. Like, I'm not really for any of those things, and like, it's like it's a very convoluted question. Like, if you want, I'll send you the link.
You got to give Dave Rubin a Cartman accent, from South Park. I didn't know what you're talking about, guys. I'm not entirely sure what you're talking about.
Yeah, that's exactly how he sounds in my head.
Yeah,
I decided to like watch some of like Hassan's stream today. I don't know if he's still streaming or not, but dude's a millionaire and yet he can't afford a better chair for his back. Sus to me. But he was like watching like some like Dave Rubin video. I'm like, dude, you could be reacting to other stuff. Why does it have to be Rubin?
No. Yeah, talk about low hanging fruit. It's like a rotten apple on the ground.
So I was gonna say we've gone past 9 o'clock. It's 9:05 where I'm at.
Is it your bedtime?
Well, technically yes, but I wish I could stay. I wish I could stay on longer because like I enjoy this kind of thing. I honestly like I can't wait for my first official holiday break. That goes beyond one day because Labor Day technically doesn't count. Where I can do an all-day stream on Twitch, and I want to do that. I really, really, really want to do that for the people that are watching on Twitch. Don't worry, I will stream more than just 2 hours a night.
Right.
I mean, I'm gonna do 8 hours.
I was gonna respond to what you said about Labor Day and joke, do like a Jimmy Dore thing, just be like, oh no, he said like Labor Day doesn't matter. He doesn't like workers. He hates unions.
Says the guy who hates policemen. I mean, not saying that.
Notice that he no longer talks about the police, considering his right-wing audience loves cops.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Say the guy who supposedly hates policemen, but he grew up with police. That's what I meant to say.
Yeah, well,
I was gonna say my dad's a cop, and I've grown up not liking the police.
Yeah,
mostly because it's been so close to home.
Yeah.
Plus, every time I'd ask my dad something, he'd be like, "Well, when I was on the police department," it's like I don't want to hear about that. It's like being on the farm. No thanks. Leave me alone.
I've been to a farm, but I've never lived on a farm. But
I've been to a farm. My great uncle owned one. It was I went when I was like 7, so I was scared the entire time.
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say I wish I could. I'm definitely gonna want to do a dual stream with Christina so she could get a better CPU and help you raise some funds.
Yes.
To get a better monitor and maybe not a monitor but a better PC with a better CPU.
Yes, definitely, because
I feel bad for you. And maybe you could get you have a mic. I actually saw it in the corner there. You should,
yes, it's a Blue Yeti.
That's so cool. I have I don't know.
Someone sent it to me. Literally, like a lot of the stuff was sent to me. I'm like, thank God.
Man, do you have any headsets, or do you use headsets? Oh, those are nice. Those are real nice. They're kind of clunky. I know, but hey, try them on. I want to see what you look like.
I've seen those ears before.
Oh yeah.
Oh, you look so much like Pixel.
Oh God, they're like I couldn't hear you guys for a second there.
Maybe because they're too
Good noise canceling.
Are those the only pair you have?
Yeah.
Oh.
And I can remove the cat ears. But I haven't used them yet because I need a better PC so I can game too.
Right, yeah. I need to learn how to start gaming on Twitch. I really want. Man, there's so many things that I want. Now that I've like officially met you, Christina.
What you do is like you do like the game capture in like whatever software you use and like post like the link to like where the game is from, and then it like boom. There it is. Something like that.
Do you remember, like, I was watching this thing with Hassan Piker, like that esports documentary that came out about him on YouTube. How he like played, I forget what it's called, but he played a Twitch game with
AOC.
Yeah, AOC and
Among Us.
There we go, Among Us. He played it with AOC, Ilhan
Omar.
Ilhan. I keep mispronouncing her name. Omar in the squad. And I'm gonna mispronounce or forget the name of the Canadian. Is he Canadian that Hassan played Among Us? I was like, I really want to do something like that.
Yeah.
I really want to game and.
Yeah, there's quite a few people. There's this one adult film actor who also is a Twitch streamer, Xander Corvus. He actually frequently collabs with James from Internet and Tina_2, who's a friend. There's quite a lot of like French Canadian leftist streamers. I'm like, if I want to learn a thing or two about Canadian politics, I'm like, I watch them.
The only two I know obviously are David Dole and Lance from the Surfs.
Yeah, Lance is good too.
Yeah, those are the only two Canadian political left streamers that.
God, I'm like, David, why you get a haircut?
Yeah. He had a really good checkered Halloween type shirt on. He actually posted something, and I was like, on Twitter, I was like, looking sharp there, man. And
yeah, he's got a very deadpan, like, sense of, like, character as well. Like, while Mike, his voice is almost like ASMR. I tell him this. He's like, I get made fun, like, my voice, people make fun of my voice. I'm like, your voice is lovely.
Yeah.
It's very soothing. I can literally have you on in the background, and I would just be like...
fall asleep, yeah.
Yep.
I hope my voice is good. It's usually really scratchy.
My voice is deep.
Yeah.
Like when I was on, because I was actually on Reactions on TYT's Twitch, doing the fake news show with Ray, and I'm like both hot, raspy voiced bisexual women collabing.
I don't know what my voice sounds like. I don't want to think about it.
Sounds pretty good. It sounds great.
Well, thanks. I don't know what to say to that.
Hey, no problem, man.
I mean, I wish I had a deep voice. I wish I had one of those voices where I could just, dulcet tones of something. But my voice is about medium, I think.
Medium range.
I
guess. I don't know.
And people are always confused by my accent. They're like, you grew up in the South, yet your accent is not like a twang. I'm like, well, that's because I was surrounded by people who are originally from different parts of the country, and also my family's from Jersey, so my accent's like mid-Atlantic.
You're a Jersey girl. No pun intended to the Kevin Smith movie.
Yeah.
Or the Bruce Springsteen song.
Yeah, I'm actually from where Bruce Springsteen's from. He's kind of an acquaintance. Yep, Freehold.
So living in, I'm curious to know, Christina, in Freehold, where you live, how easy is it to get from New Jersey to New York? Like if you were living in New Jersey now, like you're not living there now, but if you were to live in Jersey now, would you be able to get on an Amtrak ride or a train ride?
I would go to drive 30 minutes. I think it's 30 minutes to Matawan train station, and then take the train. You go all the way through Newark and all that, because Freehold is kind of central-ish Jersey. So it's not that far. And I keep saying, because my sister wants us to move back to Jersey, I'm like, when I reach partner, perhaps, where we can afford to live up there, I can easily dress up in a cosplay, take an Uber to the train station, go to the train station, and hang out in Times Square in a cosplay and, like, make easy money that way.
I can't tell you how I've been dying to move to New York. I mean, I really want to live there. I mean,
Yeah, I hate living in the South.
I mean, it's so. There was a term that my uncle used to describe the state that I live in, and it's very bumpkin here. It's like a bumpkin state here in Missouri.
Show me state, right?
Yeah, show me state. We're red state. Our governor's a piece of crap. He's a,
Yeah. It's pronounced misery for a reason.
Misery.
Yeah. Well, like we have like like in Georgia, there's this place called Martinez, but it's spelt and it's supposed to be said Martinez.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would have to say, if I could have any accent, it would be the that mid-Atlantic accent they used to have for actors and stuff.
Yeah.
I would love that. That would be.
No one sounds really American or like British. Actually, a good modern, like someone who still has there's actually someone who does have a mid-Atlantic accent. Have you ever watched the original Romeo, like the 1968 version of Romeo and Juliet with Olivia Hussey? Like her daughter, India, has a mid-Atlantic accent because her father's is American and her mother is obviously a British actress, so her accent is like mid-Atlantic, and everyone's like, I want her voice, and I'm like, you could easily train yourself to sound like her.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, and I think I don't know if I have a specific city I'd want to live in.
I would rather just not live in America too. Like,
well, I was about to say, if I do ever become a big time writer, I'm probably gonna go to Switzerland.
Yeah.
But
I want to live in like Finland or Iceland.
Right.
Well, considering their life expectancy is so better than
yeah.
Right. Well, and I was gonna say, I did have somebody joke one time. We were watching we're watching something or reading something about there was some like robot hitchhiker thing that made its way across the country, and then when it got to Philadelphia, they beat the shit out of it and took it apart. And they were my friend was laughing about it, and they're like, you know what? It's like if your personality was a city, it'd be Philadelphia. And it's like, thanks.
It's always sunny in Philadelphia.
Yeah, and everybody's rude as hell.
Cue Temptation Sensations. Oh, I can't wait for the next season of that show.
Yes.
I was reacting to some clips from it the other night on stream, and everyone's like, "You even watch this show too?" I'm like, "Yeah, it's pure. It's a good show for leftists to watch."
Yeah, definitely.
Oh man. Yeah.
I'm trying to see I don't think I'm really binge watching anything at the moment.
I would binge watch It's Always Sunny. I did that during like when I took 2 weeks off last year during the pandemic. The first season I'm like, I don't think I'm gonna like this because it's so like dated, like 2004, 2005, 2006, like eesh, but it gets better.
I've binge watched Psych, a season of Psych with Julia. It's not bad. It's not a bad show.
I gotta watch like oh god. What's James Gandolfini? What the Sopranos?
Sopranos.
Yeah.
Did you ever? I don't know if you listen. I don't know if he still does it, but I think Ben Burgess and Nando Vila, they do like a Sopranos episode by episode watch and talk of the podcast.
Yeah.
I don't know if he still does it, but I think it's like if you're a Patreon on his channel.
Right.
Yeah.
So the show I always have on at some point is House. That's just my favorite show ever. And I can't let it go. But I did binge watch Billions and I did watch. My sister and I like to watch Bob's Burgers together.
That's not a bad show. I like.
Of course, Sam Peter.
You know something else that's on all the streaming platforms for free, and
Yeah.
I would take that since we're all around millennial aged. I
Yeah.
think, Christina, you said you're almost 30, so that
Yes.
would like mean you were born in like 92.
93.
93. Okay, so I was
Oh.
born in 92. So
well, that makes me the youngest.
Oh God.
What do I get? What can I get away with?
and
Go ahead.
What's free?
well, like the one thing that I'm binge watching because it's been on all the streaming platforms, is Degrassi: The Next Generation.
Oh yeah. Oh God.
My God.
Good stuff.
Just think that if we had known what Aubrey Drake Graham would be in a few years, like
Yeah.
it's like it's
Creepy groomer.
Yeah, if you really think about it,
You know what show's also really good? What We Do in the Shadows.
I've never heard of that. I have to see it.
Oh, it's a funny. Taika Waititi's behind it, and Jermaine Clement, and oh my God, it's so funny. It's like a reality show type of thing, a mockumentary about vampires living in Staten Island. They got an energy vampire who's a little like he would be like the ultimate troll. It's so good. I love it. The third season just ended.
Oh, did it? Mm. I kind of wish they still had Chilling Adventures of Sabrina on Netflix. I wish it's kind of sucky though and sad that COVID ended a lot of the good shows that are on.
Yeah.
I was getting into like Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, and then there was
they were bringing her onto Riverdale, I think.
Yeah, I heard.
Which I'm like Riverdale's kind of sucks, so it's like
I've only seen like the first season. Like I know it's based on the Archie comics.
Sugar. Like not that. Like it's.
What else?
Honey.
Trying to think. Because Superman and Lois. I don't know what your take is on that. If you
Isn't Dean Cain like?
Oh God, no, not that one. Not Lois and Clark.
That's okay. I was like, what?
There's a new version that's in that just was debuted on the CW. And if you have the CW app, or if you like look at if you have local TV, you should check out Superman and Lois. It's really good. I was telling you, I'm a big Smallville like Tom Welling, Michael Rosenbaum kind of person.
I'm excited that HBO Max is doing a Black Canary film that's written by the Lovecraft creator or whatever. That just got Lovecraft Country or whatever that just got canceled. So I'm like, well, that show was really good. So whoever's gonna be directing that's gonna do an excellent job.
Yeah.
It's nice when Warner Brothers doesn't interfere in their comic stuff now.
Yeah, well, I'm not even gonna bring up Joss Whedon's name because I was a major Buffy fan until I heard all that stuff. And
I love Buffy.
I mean, I could still with me, I can probably separate the character in the show from the creator. Like, I can love it and like it on a human level.
Yeah.
And, know that the creator did this horrible, horrendous things, and I still love the show in a different way. Is what I'm trying to say.
I feel kind of bad because I've not watched any of the shows you've mentioned since.
Oh God!
So I'm sitting here and I'm just like.
With me, I grew up with a grandmother who loved all those shows, and so it was always around. It was always on. It was always around. So
my thing is soap operas.
Yeah, I mean,
Marlene is possessed again. It's been 20 years, and everyone's like, "What in the hell is going on here?" And I'm like, "They're trying to get the young people in."
Yeah, I mean, you would think they would try to bring All My Children and One Life to Live back.
Yeah. If you're in a hospital and take a risk, I'm done watching it for now. I take breaks.
Take your
ABC has all this money, yet they can't fund their only surviving soap opera. Make it like they ignored that poor Charles had vampires. They try to work their way around it, like, oh, they were just mentally ill, and I'm like, no, you can say that vampires exist.
Yeah.
People come back from
Like,
the dead.
Is that whole like department at ABC wouldn't even exist anymore? ABC daytime.
Yeah, like they just they do whatever they can with General Hospital at this point. But I'm just like, come on,
It's like
they're
when
doing the
NBC
streaming thing with days.
Yeah, definitely. That's the thing. Like that's the same with like NBC daytime. It's like when Passions back in 07, like
Yeah.
yeah, it's like
Little
when
Timmy's
Days was
trapped in the well.
Yeah. when Days was the only one that they didn't need to brand it anymore was NBC daytime. Just call it
Yeah.
Days. Like CBS is the only one that has official like a daytime
Yeah, because it got the Bold and Beautiful and the Young and the Restless, which I'm amazed. I'm like, oh, Bold and Beautiful, Quinn's off the rails again.
Yep. But then they use Price is Right as a way to maneuver that as well as a crutch.
That's a good, like, you're homesick from school. What are you going to watch? You're going to watch Murray, Jerry Springer, a soap, The Price is Right, have some chicken noodle soup.
Like 20 years ago, 20 freaking years ago, my cousin and I would watch Maury Povich and we would laugh at it and we would joke about it. Like he used to do like subjects on like bad kids that were like under the age of like 10 that would do like smoke, they would do drugs, they would do all sorts of stuff, they would cuss and everything. And my cousin and I would be like, we should just go on there for fun and just like punk Maury Povich, not even like consider, not even like do the things that the other kids would do, but like pretend to do it and just just
before the Catch Me Outside girl.
Yeah, there you go. And then when the cameras were off, they'd just be like, yeah, you got punked, Maury Povich, and just laughing.
Oh god, punked.
Oh god.
His show is like the most, and in a way it's kind of like the most trashiest thing on daytime TV, but it is enjoyable when you have like when the subject matter and the people, like when the couples that come on, they just keep coming on in one calendar year, and you know that they've done something really, really, really stupid, and it's bad, but it makes good entertainment. It makes good popcorn.
Someone wants to say hi.
Is that Frankie or
nope,
Zoe?
it's Zoe.
Oh, she's real nice.
Yeah, she's my Siamese. She's like, oh god, I don't like this. I don't like being in front of the camera.
Sup, cat?
She's camera shy.
Yeah. She's like, no. Frankie's better at this. I suck
old
at
is
this.
she?
She's like 11. No, she's 10. Yeah, she's 10 because Frankie's 12.
That's old in cat years.
Yeah, that's pretty old. They got some beef dip before.
Mm-hmm.
Which is basically cheese dip and hamburger ground beef. I love eating that stuff, but they wanted it, so I was like, here, you can have the little bit that I have left.
There you go. Oh, man, I wish I could stay here all night. It's almost 9:30. I know that we all have to get up tomorrow and go to work, go to school. Well,
do I?
No, well, RC, I was about to say, you stay home and write.
I'm working at like 10:30 in the morning, but like I get to sleep in, so it's like I have a trazodone and a half calling my name.
I have to get up at like 6:30 tomorrow, which is way too early for me. I so can't wait for daylight savings so I can get an extra hour of sleep.
I don't have to get up for a job, but I have a strict writing schedule. I have to be up at 8. So
you can always procrastinate.
No.
Don't
I do not align.
Writer's block.
Yeah, writer's block makes when I would write papers for my English class, I would always get writer's block, and I would always have to type from memory.
Well, whenever I have writer's block, which I don't actually believe in, but I know what you're talking about. I just write a letter to myself until something clicks. So
Nice.
that's how I get around it. But
dear self, help me get out of this funk that I'm in. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
Well, it's not literally to myself. I've written many angry letters to people who I haven't sent them to.
Oh boy.
Nevertheless, but yeah, no, I have a schedule and I have to stick to it. I try to go for a certain word count every day, which about 1,000 words. And then at night I write my essays. So
there you go.
Hey,
yeah,
thumbs up.
I gotta wait to go through the whole day, so my irritation just slowly builds, and then I let it all out of my essays.
There you go. Alrighty, so this was fun, and this was. Honestly, real quickly, I thought the debate was going to be longer than 50 plus minutes. So but all in all,
you can only wind up Shapiro so much, and then let it go.
Well,
Yeah, it would have gone on a little bit longer if Shapiro actually spoke like at a normal speed.
Yeah,
he never really. When does he ever?
He's like a 2.5 on like when you try to like watch something really really like to speed up the audio or whatever. He's at like that setting.
Yeah, if you make him mad enough, he starts to sound like Alvin from Alvin and the Chipmunks.
Yeah.
You know?
Yep.
So, still no chat comments, which is a shame, but no big deal.
It's the beginning of the week, believe it or not. Like Mondays are not always like the best streaming nights because people are really focused on getting their week situated.
Yeah.
So like Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturdays. The Sunday.
Yeah.
There you go.
I'm still learning about the streaming stuff.
Hey, this is our life now. More or less, man.
Our life? You mean your life? No.
Well, no, our life. Because, my life, but we're all doing the same kind of thing. So, yeah, it is our life.
Yes.
Maybe. Or this could all be a simulation. It's all a lie. No, I'm kidding.
That has no meaning.
Yeah.
Well, we all know that.
You know how life ain't real? Have you ever seen your neighbors get groceries? That's how you know this is all a simulation.
Yeah.
They're all NPCs.
I've never seen anyone go inside their house carrying groceries. So I'm like, maybe this is not all real. Maybe this is all in my head.
I carry my groceries all the way up to the top floor. Always fun.
I still got to use the elevator because I'm too damn lazy. Unless there's like
you have a fucking elevator.
Yeah, in my
I
apartment.
live in an upstairs apartment.
Now I'm really irritated.
Yes.
Well, I'm sorry that I live in a 10th floor place with a bunch of elderly people. And not a lot of youngins. I'm like the youngest in my.
A Bernie cosplay. I need a mask.
I was about to say just turn around and be like, somebody give me my mittens. I'm irritated.
Yeah, someone did like a thirst trap for Halloween, and it was a full-on Bernie cosplay. She wore like a mask and everything, sitting like. I love it.
That's really cool. And then there was the pumpkin. There was the pumpkin.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was gonna say that's one way to bring about revolution. So.
Yep.
All right. Well, we've been on long enough. 2 hours and 30 minutes has been.
Yes.
So, you know what? Why don't you all go ahead and plug yourselves? I know you've done it before, but let's do I got a piece of paper.
All right. I'll let Christina go first.
Yes, so you can find me on Twitch at twitch.tv/Christina, not Christina, as Janky Brewer likes to pronounce my name at times. But I usually stream about politics, I react to stuff, I talk about music, movies, comics, pop culture. I also do quite a bit of cosplaying. I think the next cosplay I might do is Agatha Harkness from WandaVision. And also, I got a custom-made Harley cosplay that's being sent my way, so I'll be doing that too. And I usually stream. I try to stream every night, but like 6 to 9. But I'm still figuring out.
You. This was kind of a spur of the moment thing for me. to
Oh,
ask you to
why?
come on.
I wasn't going to stream tonight anyway because I'm tired. And I know Mondays are not really a good streaming night because, like, a lot of my friends are already online. I'm like, everyone's going to be watching them instead of me. So it's like tomorrow I can stream. Ray's not going to be on. I'll be good.
I'm so gonna talk to Ray. I'd like to have Ravana on.
She's awesome. She's fun.
She's a disability rights advocate, and as someone with disability, I'm
Yeah, and she also knows a lot about immigration law as well. So, like, if you want to get like a one-on-one on that,
yeah. All right,
she's really smart.
Charlie, go right ahead, sir.
All right. The name is R.C. Roberts.
Okay.
I write for my Substack, which is called Ferocia Animi. That is Latin. It's spelled FEROCIAANIMI. I also have a Facebook page, same name. Twitter, same name, all lowercase with a underscore between Ferocia and Anime. And I'm really cool.
Yeah, you are. You both are.
So that's how I'm gonna end this.
Christina is a lot cooler than I.
If you vote for me, all your dreams will come true.
There you go.
Yeah, I'm cool, I guess.
You are awesome. You're. I gotta say, you're a lot awesome than I thought you would be. And I'm not saying that in a mean. I'm saying that in a nice way possible. You are total awesome.
Thanks.
Don't you also do movie night extravaganza occasionally?
Yeah, I did the Nightmare on Elm Street one with Ravana and Andy, and Forrest is probably gonna have me on whatever in the future. He's got like he already has like 50 movies lined up, and I'm like, you should try it. He's gonna try to do Twitch as well, so I'm like, you can do both. You can stream, you can do the multi-stream. You got this.
He uses StreamYard, so he knows
Yeah.
what he's doing. And I think RC, you were on there as well.
I have been on there twice. We will see if he invites me again. I'm obligated every time he brings up Ronald Reagan. I have to bring up Gore Vidal. So
I'm still waiting for Clerks or any Kevin Smith movie. So he said he would do it. So I'm.
I want to do my cousin Vinny so badly because I'm like, talk about a culture clash.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I was gonna say now you just have to bother Forrest every day. Just send and be like, Clerks yet?
Yeah,
Clerks?
I do want to ask him, but I don't want to be a nuisance. But that may change.
Well, if you're not gonna get it if you're not a nuisance. I've learned this.
I guess that may.
I bother people every day.
Okay, I'm definitely gonna have to change. All right, RC, as ever. Thanks, man, and I'm glad you're well. I'm so sorry you got the flu and it took you.
I'm glad I'm well too.
And Christina, I am honored to have you here. I really want you to come back and.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely all for coming back because this was fun.
And again, just real quickly, I did watch your stream last night, and being friends on Facebook and whatnot has been awesome. So.
Yes.
There's definitely gonna be a good, I would say, friendship if in some way.
Yes.
So
friends till the end.
Friends till the end. So that is it, folks. I have to do my own outro. So you guys have a good night. All right. So that was fun. That was real fun. I went 2 hours and we got 5 people to watch the show. So unfortunately, no comments. So with that said, I'm going to close out. Catch TJRS, the John Ross Show, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 on YouTube and Twitch. Read me on Substack, as always, tjrs.substack.com. Follow me on social media, which is Twitter at John Ross 1992. Facebook is John Ross. Twitch is Jonathan Ross. Patreon. Do what you can. I mean, I don't know. I may have to do away with the Patreon. I may have to do what Christina was doing, which was doing a affiliate deal through Twitch. Yeah, we'll see. We'll see. As always, like and subscribe. Please hit that like button on YouTube. Subscribe on Twitch. And with that said, I am out of here. Left is best. Rest in power to Michael Brooks. Rest in power to Ed Asner. Thanks again to Christina and RC. And I will see you. I think I'm going to take tomorrow off. So I think I'll see you guys on Wednesday night.